Chapter 3773. Let's go. We'll kill our way over. Ao Zhan's figure gradually flashes with auspicious clouds. The more powerful strange beasts in the valley have just fought. We can take advantage of this opportunity to enter. Zhu Mei coldly shouts. Flames shoot out from her body in all directions as she flies towards the battlefield. However, under Zhu Mei's intentional control, the flames that can soar to the sky are not particularly conspicuous. As expected, I can hear it. Although it's a bit vague, when I cultivate it in the future, I'll definitely be able to hear it clearly. Xiaohua has already flown far away, leaving only a trace of soul consciousness to scout the surroundings. Seeing Zhu Mei and Ao Zhan fly out to kill strange beasts, he also smiles evilly. Damn it, why didn't this old man think of it? Even if I can't get any holy bloodline, it's also good to get some demon beast flesh and demon core. Who knows, these flesh and bones might have some uses. Speaking of this, Xiaohua naturally thinks of the Mo Zhao corpse he obtained in the Mo Zhao Black Forest. The brain matter is really useful. The Buddha's heavenly eye was successfully cultivated in this way. Moreover, he obtained the essence of the void-penetrating beast in the void. At this time, the essence was gradually absorbed by the delirium transcendence eye. Although the heavenly eye was cultivated by the Buddha's relic Bodhi, Xiaohua's delirium transcendence, I can also borrow it. What makes Xiaohua especially happy is that in addition to seeing further, the delirium transcendence eye has a new function, which is to hear some secret sound transmissions. Just now, Xiaohua left his soul consciousness to try out this newly obtained ability. Although he is far away from Ao Zhan and Zhu Mei and might not be able to hear anything clearly, this is enough to make Xiaohua jump for joy. The delirium transcendence eye itself doesn't have this ability. It should be the Buddha's heavenly eye. The so-called heavenly eye can see everything in the world. Everything is not just an illusion, it can also be sound and so on. In the past, didn't Master Qing Chen of the Snowy Mountain use heavenly ear to see everything? It's normal for this Xiao to hear everything with heavenly eye. Some Mo Zhao have such an effect. Then what about the strange beasts in the legacy world? Thinking of this, the greedy Xiaohua couldn't help but feel a fire burning in his heart. Nowadays, primal stones could no longer move him. What he loved the most was the flesh and yao cores of these strange beasts. The legacy world was naturally a barrier. Unlike the outside world, the sun star and the moon star in the sky didn't rise and fall alternately. Xiaohua's soul consciousness was also very useful. After killing for half a day, he had a lot of harvest. Although he also encountered a few extremely powerful strange beasts, Xiaohua relied on his soul consciousness and escape technique to escape. He simply couldn't bear the brunt of their attacks. Facing such an opponent, those strange beasts could only respond with a roar and chase to the edge of their own forces before stopping. Haha, what a great harvest! After escaping from a strange beast that looked like an earthworm, but was even larger than the thunderflood dragon, Xiaohua watched from afar as the strange beast spat out strange bubbles. When the bubbles landed on the ground, they corroded the huge rocks on the ground. Xiaohua stretched his body and laughed loudly. Then, Xiaohua looked to the left and said with a bitter smile, "This direction seems to be where Ao Zhan and I agreed to meet. Unfortunately, I didn't dare to let Fuji win out. Otherwise, I would have been able to confirm it. Oh, it should be right." Right at this moment, several roars and wails could be heard in the distance. Several streaks of demonic aura and multicolored light soared into the sky. It was rather chaotic. Xiaohua smiled. He knew that it was Ao Zhan and the others who had arrived. He urged his body and flew into the distance. Not long after, a strange beast that looked like a mantis flew out of the giant forest. Its long forearms had sharp pincers that were more than 10 feet long. Every time it waved, thin and long black lines appeared on the edge of the pincers, as if it was tearing the void. The strength of this strange beast was evident. This thing is somewhat similar to the strange beast I encountered in the void. Xiaohua urged his transcendence golden body, and took out the wishful steel rod. Looking at this strange beast, he secretly thought, "It's a pity that the spirit-killing light hasn't been refined yet. Otherwise, I could try using it." Seeing that the strange beast's wings were emitting a breathtaking noise as it flew over aggressively, the aura used to perceive the enemy had already swept over. Xiaohua raised the wishful steel rod and rushed over with a loud shout. Strange beasts that could occupy their territory were, of course, powerful. Although this strange mantis-like beast could not be compared to the strange beast in the void, its body was also tough. The sharpness of its pincers and the strength of its arms were beyond Xiaohua's expectations. Xiaohua could only fight this strange beast to a draw with the wishful steel rod and the heavenly staff technique. Of course, while Xiaohua was surprised, he still followed his plan and retreated in the direction of Ao Zhan and the other demons. Ao Zhan and the other demons were naturally in the distance. With the experience of killing mutated beasts and the tactic of roaming, Zhu Mei and Ao Zhan did not spend much effort to find old demon Jifeng, Ao Shui, and the other demons. As for King Mulu, there was no trace of him at first. Ao Zhan did not know whether the Stag King was intentional or not, but he already believed Xiaohua's words. However, Ao Zhan's purpose was to accompany Ao Qian to gain experience. It would be best if he could obtain the so-called true dragon bloodline. Even if he could not, he would not have too many regrets. After all, the foundation of the Dragon Palace was not what Xiaohua thought. Ao Zhan had many means to cultivate. With Zhu Mei, a similarly proud demon, beside him, Ao Qian was also domineering. He took out his full spirit to attack and kill monsters. In this half a day, although Ao Qian and Zhu Mei did not compete, the two demons' harvest was far more than Ao Zhan, Ao Shui, and old demon Jifeng. As for the old demon Jifeng, although he had some fortuitous encounters after the Bronze Pillar Country auction, and his strength was no longer the same as before, he was still a far cry from the likes of Ao Qian and Zhu Mei. He did not dare to snatch any demonic beasts from the two demons, and only dealt with some small demonic beasts nearby. When there were any abnormalities, he would immediately meet up with the three dragons and the vermilion bird. And his harvest was not small. Things were quite strange. Just when Ao Zhan thought that he would not meet the Stag King after meeting Xiaohua, the Stag King appeared. Moreover, it appeared with a fierce beast that looked like a fierce wolf. The huge fierce beast was surrounded by light brown demon clouds. Its eyes were filled with blood-red filaments. Its flying speed was much faster than the Stag King. However, this fierce wolf did not have much spiritual intelligence. It was not as cunning as the Stag King. Every time it was about to catch up to the Stag King, he would escape. The Stag King did not dare to release too much of his Yuan Shen. When he saw Zhu Mei and the other demons, he did not care about anything else. Without hesitation, he shouted and rushed over. Zhu Mei and Ao Qian naturally would not save him. However, this fierce wolf was indeed powerful. When it saw that the Stag King had helpers, it howled and attracted a pack of wolves. Facing the powerful wolf pack, Zhu Mei and Ao Qian had no choice but to escape again. Of course, the 6 demons were lucky this time and did not scatter. It was when they escaped the fierce wolf's pursuit that, under Ao Zhan's intentional guidance, they encountered 4 strange beasts similar to spirit apes. These 4 spirit apes were slightly weaker than fierce wolf. Zhu Mei and Ao Qian, under shame and anger, had already used all of their strength. With the help of Ao Zhan, they killed one of the spirit apes. Just as they were about to attack again, they heard a clear GA sound. The golden-winged rock appeared again. Although it was still far away from Ao Zhan and the others, its fierce aura had already scared the 3 dragons. Without any hesitation, the 3 dragons broke away from the battle of the 3 spirit apes and flew towards the direction of Xiaohua. Zhu Mei, Ao Qian, and the others naturally did not continue to fight. The 3 spirit apes got the upper hand and roared behind the 6 demons, beginning to chase after them. Ao Qian turned into a light blue dragon form. He did not dare to be too arrogant, and was only a few hundred feet long. Just as he was heading forward, he suddenly heard a roar and a strange ca sound. He almost shouted without hesitation, "Ao Zhan, there are strange beasts in front." Before he could finish, Ao Zhan had already released his Yuan Shun and shouted, "Don't panic, little prince. There seems to be a demon that came in to train in front. He's fighting with a demon that looks like a Zhou beast." While speaking, Ao Zhan had already looked at the Stag King and Zhu Mei, who were not far behind him, carefully observing the expressions of the 2 demons. How is that possible? The Stag King, who had suffered a lot, naturally did not dare to release his Yuan Shen. At this time, when he heard Ao Zhan's words, he could not help but have a trace of surprise on his face. This surprise also had a flash of panic. Although this panic was very subtle, it was clearly seen by Ao Zhan. It can't be? Zhu Mei also found it strange and hurriedly released her Yuan Shen. When she saw it clearly, she said in surprise, "No, that's not right. This does not seem to be a demon. It's a human." Human? As they spoke, all the demons released their Yuan Shen. When they saw the appearance of the Dharma body clearly, whether it was the Stag King, Ao Shuai, or the old demon Jifeng, a look of disbelief appeared on their faces. Xiaohua? This is Xiaohua. No, it can't be Xiaohua. The old demon Jifeng really did not dare to see the awe-inspiring Xiaohua actually gamble with a Zhou beast. This human's strength is not bad. Zhu Mei spread her wings and said hurriedly, "Although he is not a match for this Zhou beast, and may be able to escape from the claws of the Zhou beast, he will be of help. Let's go meet him and train together." No. The Stag King did not hesitate to stop her. "Zhu Mei, this cold spirit valley is the sacred training ground of our demon race. It was left behind from the ancient times. No matter how strong this human is, he should not covet the ancient grace of our demon race. Moreover, in my opinion, it is precisely because of this human's appearance here that it caused the demon beast to mutate, and caused our training to become so unpredictable. If we want to train here and let the demon beasts in the cold spirit valley settle down, we must first kill this human." Ao Zhan laughed. The old demon Jifeng gritted his teeth and said, "That's right. If it was someone else, this old man may be able to tolerate it a little. However, this Xiaohua has repeatedly ruined this old man's plans. Now that I have seen this demon here, it is his death." Chapter 3774. Ao Zhan saw that old monster Jifeng was so angry that he actually called himself Old Man. Obviously, he hated Xiaohua to the bone. He couldn't help but look at Ao Shuai. "What do you think?" "Me?" Ao Shuai was startled and hurriedly smiled. "Little Prince and General Ao are here. I don't have the right to speak. Little Prince, please make the decision. Kill. You must kill." Ao Qian shouted proudly. "This is the training ground for us demons. How can we allow humans to covet it?" "All right." Ao Zhan nodded. "Since Little Prince wants to kill, then let's kill." As he spoke, Ao Zhan raised his dragon head to the sky and was about to roar. But at this moment Zhu Mei, who had always been at odds with Ao Qian, sneered. "What a bunch of idiots. Strange beasts are everywhere in the cold spirit valley. We were chased away by the strange beasts before we even started our training. Now that a helper has finally appeared, regardless of whether he is a human or a demon, we should try to rope him in. How could we kill him without even asking? Don't you want to leave this cold spirit valley? Don't you think so, Stag King?" This Stag King obviously knew that Zhu Mei was being serious with Ao Qian. He definitely had to stand on Zhu Mei's side. But if he let Xiaohua go, who knew if Xiaohua knew about this legacy realm? Stag King was very hesitant. He didn't dare to gamble. "All right, Stag King." Ao Zhan suddenly thought of something and hurriedly shouted, "I haven't asked you yet. Why is this cold spirit valley training only the beginning? How can we get out of this cold spirit valley? I don't care about training. I want to ensure the safety of my little prince." "That's right." Ao Shuai suddenly realized and hurriedly asked, "Mulu King, where is the exit of this cold spirit valley? The entrance from before is already gone. Do we still need to rely on? Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Ao Qian said angrily. "Ao Shuai, go and kill that human." Let's see who dares." Zhu Mei snorted coldly as the flames around her body surged out. Ao Qian was furious. He hesitated as he looked at Ao Shuai. Jifeng shrank his head back, and was about to fly out when Ao Zhan chuckled from the side. "Young Prince, this general feels that Zhu Mei is right. Although we can't possibly be in the same boat as this human brat, wouldn't it be better to let him be a shield and charge at the front?" Ao Qian was naturally afraid of Ao Zhan. Hearing Ao Zhan's words, he said coldly, "Your despicable methods really make this king feel uncomfortable. Forget it, do as you please." Seeing that Ao Qian had agreed, Stag King felt even more uneasy. He really regretted hiding it from him earlier. Unfortunately, at this point he couldn't explain himself. He thought of an old saying of the human race. It's easy to tell a lie, but it's difficult to make up 100 lies to cover it up. Let's go, the golden-winged rock is chasing us. Ao Zhan sneered in his heart. He raised his head and roared a few times. He urged Zhu Mei, "We'll go help this human cultivator first and then ask him if he has a way to avoid the golden-winged rock." He's just a human cultivator. How would he know? Stag King bit his lips and said hesitantly, "Besides, will he cooperate with us?" Zhu Mei glanced at Stag King and said, "Why not? Since he can enter Cold Spirit Valley, he naturally has other tokens. Maybe he knows other entrances and exits. You discuss with him and choose the safest exit." "Oh, okay." Stag King secretly complained and could only nod in agreement. He followed the demons and flew toward Xiaohua. "You human cultivator, I'll help you." Zhu Mei used hidden immortal continent's human language to send a message. She spread her wings and rushed toward Xiang and Beast. The red flames in her mouth flew out like a fireball. "Ah? You." Xiaohua naturally looked at the flying Zhu Mei with surprise. He almost smashed the wishful staff in his hand. "Don't be afraid. I'm not a demon beast of Cold Spirit Valley. I'm Zhu Mei of Thousand Demons' Sacred Realm." Zhu Mei blocked the sharp claws of Xiang and Beast for Xiaohua and shouted, "I'm training in this Cold Spirit Valley." At this time, Stag King also flew over and shouted, "Xiaohua, why did you come to my demon race's Cold Spirit Valley to train?" Xiaohua saw Stag King and his face turned pale with fright. He then scanned the distance with his divine sense, and was even more surprised. He urged his spiritual power, as if he was about to activate an escape technique. However, Xiaohua still said curiously, This is clearly the 100 Demons Mountain used by my human race for training. How did it become the demon race's Cold Spirit Valley?" Stag King heard and his hanging heart immediately calmed down. Seeing Xiaohua's cautious look, he hurriedly smiled and said, "Fellow immortal Xiao, don't be afraid. Whether it's your human race's 100 Demons Mountain, or my demon race's Cold Spirit Valley, both are places for training. Moreover, it's not the first time we've met. Although there were some grudges before, since we've met again, what do those grudges count for? Why don't you and I work together in the same boat, and complete this training to the end?" How could Xiaohua believe Stag King? While his figure flew into the distance, he shouted, "Fellow immortal Zhu, thank you for your help. However, there's a difference between you and me, humans and demons. I just happened to get an opportunity and inexplicably barged into this place. It's better if I don't disturb your training. I'll find the exit myself." Roar Ao Zhan was already impatient. He scanned the approaching golden-winged great Peng behind him with his divine sense. He flew and landed not far from Xiaohua and shouted, "You human race, I'll give you a chance to choose. Do you want to die in my hands, or do you want to train with me first?" Roar while speaking, Ao Zhan also flew to the left of Xiaohua and blocked his escape path. Xiaohua's face revealed bitterness. He pondered for a moment and said, "Fellow immortals, you're all powerful. Why do you have to make things difficult for a small human cultivator? If fellow immortals let me go, I can give you all the gains I've obtained from the trial." "Hehe," Ao Zhan said with a smile. "The gains from your training are yours. We don't need them. You just need to tell me how to get out of here." When Stag King heard this, he couldn't help but be shocked. At first, he felt that Ao Zhan was suspicious of him. However, when he saw the look of realization on Xiaohua's face, he also understood that this was Ao Zhan's stalling tactic. He couldn't help but laugh at his own suspicious thoughts. "Hehe, fellow immortal, you must be from the dragon race of the Dragon Palace, right? I wonder which Dragon Palace of the Four Seas you belong to?" Xiaohua seemed to have seen through Ao Zhan's thoughts and said with a smile, "I naturally know where the exit is. However, do you think I'll tell you? Oh, fellow immortal, you don't have to think about soul searching. I'm a Dao sect cultivator. I'm much more proficient in this aspect than you. As long as I'm willing, I can erase the memories of this place in a few breaths." "Damn it. Let's go." Zhu Mei forced the Xiangyi beast away with a mouthful of scarlet flames and even shattered its claws. He might not be afraid of the Xiangyi beast, But he was afraid of the golden-winged rock that was getting closer and closer. He couldn't help but curse and urge, "I don't want your exit. I know where the exit of this cold spirit valley is." When Xiaohua heard this, his expression changed again. He seemed to understand that his value had decreased by a bit. He looked at the aggressive golden-winged rock in the distant sky and gritted his teeth. "Fellow immortals, follow me. I've already gotten rid of this golden-winged rock." After speaking, Xiaohua took the lead and flew towards a place. "All right." Aozhan also flew up and said, "If you can take us away from this golden-winged rock, I'll spare your life." The direction Xiaohua was flying in was naturally where the golden-winged Great Peng was previously injured. As he expected, the golden-winged Great Peng had already begun to slow down when there was still quite a distance between them and that place. When the demons and Xiaohua had completely flown into that place, the golden-winged Great Peng let out a few cries in midair in a very unwilling manner before turning around and flying away. Xiaohua's expression didn't relax at all. He said in a low voice, "Fellow immortals, don't release your origin sense. Follow me and fly in that direction." After speaking, Xiaohua flew to the ground in a serious manner. Sometimes he flew to the left, and sometimes he flew to the right. When he flew to a place where huge trees grew, he carefully instructed the demons to hide. In a short moment, a strange centipede-like beast that was 1,000 zhang long flew across the sky. Its fierce aura swept across the sky and the ground, as if a king was inspecting his territory. After the centipede flew away, Xiaohua hurriedly led the demons to fly for a little less than an hour before stopping. He pulled away from Aozhan and the other demons and said with a smile, "All right, this place should be safe for the next 2 hours." "That's right." Zhu Mei looked at Xiaohua and nodded. "Human cultivators are indeed astute. My foresight is still extremely accurate. I'm afraid we 1,000 demons sacred realm demons wouldn't be able to grasp the timing so accurately." "I wouldn't dare," Xiaohua replied. "I've also almost lost my life several times before I learned a lesson. Perhaps I can use this to escape." Seeing that Xiaohua was valued by Zhu Mei, old demon Jifeng knew he couldn't make a move here. He had no choice but to restrain the overflowing hatred in his heart, and lowered his rat eyes to look at the ground. Stag King was still worried and asked in a low voice, "Fellow immortal Xiao Yu, how did you enter the 100-demon mountain? Where is the exit that you know of?" "I'm sorry, Stag King." Xiaohua refused without hesitation. "This is my privacy. It's not convenient to tell everyone. However, since everyone can enter this place, you should also have your demon race's ink cloud pupil, right? Where is the exit? It should be clearly recorded inside." When Stag King heard this, he was already 90% relieved. He looked at Zhu Mei and the other demons with certainty and nodded with a smile. "Fellow immortal Xiao is right. We naturally know how to get out. Now, what this king wants to discuss with you is how we should live together, train together, and safely leave this place together." Chapter 3775. Aozhan looked at Stag King and thought to himself. According to Xiaohua's words and Zhu Mei's performance, he could basically determine that Stag King was indeed hiding something. And this concealment was something even Zhu Mei didn't know about. Of course, he couldn't be sure if Zhu Mei really didn't know. At this moment, Aozhan was in an extremely difficult position. Although Xiaohua wouldn't fight with him for the true dragon's blood, Xiaohua wasn't willing to tell him the way out. Obviously, this was Xiaohua's secret. If he wanted to leave this legacy world, he had to rely on Stag King's keepsake. However, he wasn't sure if he would know how to use the token he took from the Stag King. Even if he captured the Stag King, it was still unknown if he could get the method to leave the relic world from the Stag King's memories. Perhaps Aozhan was looking forward to some unforeseen event after he obtained the true dragon's blood, but he didn't dare to place his hopes on it. He didn't dare to gamble with his life and Ao Qian's life. Moreover, there was Zhu Mei next to him. He didn't have full confidence in capturing Zhu Mei. "Why are you so long-winded?" Ao Qian said coldly. "Xiaohua, Ao Shui just told me about the enmity between you two. To be honest, this isn't a special enmity. Isn't it just a broken Pegasus? Is there a need to go so far?" Yes, what little prince said is right." Old demon Jifeng, who was at the side, hurriedly expressed his position. Actually, it's all this lowly one's fault for being too shallow and scheming against fellow immortal Xiao. Today, this lowly one will speak openly to fellow immortal Xiao in front of the young prince. The grudges between fellow immortal Xiao and this lowly one will be written off. That's right, this is a true monster of my 1,000-monster sacred realm. Zhu Mei had the same opinion as Ao Qian and said with a smile, "There's no need to worry about such a small matter." Damn it, how can that be a small matter? Old monster Ji Feng's heart was bleeding. That's the blood essence of a radiant beast. You guys can't see it, but I care about it very much. Alright, since fellow Taoist Ji Feng has spoken like this, then I have no choice but to express that I'm willing to advance and retreat together with all fellow Taoists and pass through this period of tempering in the 100-demon mountain. Xiao Hua spoke out hurriedly, seeming to be deeply afraid that old demon Ji Feng would change his mind. The Stag King pondered on the side. Seeing that the situation was unstoppable, he smiled and said, "Immortal friend Xiao, you're training here alone. If you stay with us, you'll have a great advantage. Don't you think you should show some sincerity?" This Xiao Hua pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, "How about this? It's not convenient for this Xiao to tell everyone where the specific exit of the 100-monster mountain is, but this Xiao can point out a general direction." What's the use of pointing in a direction? Besides, this king will not use your human race's exit. Aog said coldly. "Don't worry, little prince." Stag King laughed. Xiao Hua pointing out a direction can at least be considered as sincerity. And if it's because of me, the exit I know of is not suitable, we can find another exit. Xiao Hua, speak quickly. Ao Zhan said impatiently. If you're unwilling, then you can leave by yourself. Yes, yes. Xiao Hua nodded with a smile, then hurriedly pointed at the 3 places that didn't have the bloodline of the absolute saint. It's there. The Stag King's heart was completely at ease. He smiled and said, "Seems like immortal friend Zhao's exit is completely different from my monster race's." Oh, so there's another exit? Xiao Hua was also stunned, a strange expression appearing on his face. Nonsense, the entrance is different, so the exit is naturally different. Ao Zhan sneered, but suddenly he was startled again. He looked at Xiao Hua fiercely and shouted, "Speak. Did you follow behind us into the Cold Spirit Valley?" That's right. At this moment, old monster Ji Feng also woke up and hurriedly added fuel to the fire. He hid behind us and entered the Cold Spirit Valley. Otherwise, you waited behind us. Xiao Hua's mouth revealed a contemptuous smile. He clapped his hand and took out an ink cloud pupil. He said, "This Xiao naturally has my human race's ink cloud pupil. There's no need for me to follow behind you. Besides, with this Zhao's cultivation, can I hide behind you without being discovered?" This king wants to see this ink cloud pupil. The Stag King stretched out his hand and said. Xiao Hua retracted his hand and kept the ink cloud pupil. He replied indifferently, "Impossible. If you don't believe this Xiao, then just pretend you never saw this Xiao. Do you think you can still escape from our hands?" Old monster Ji Feng sneered. Demonic clouds appeared under his feet, ready to pounce at any time. Haha, Xiao Hua laughed loudly. This Xiao can't escape, but in a moment, the strange beasts in this territory will come. This Xiao's spiritual sense can attract the attention of these strange beasts. Immortal friends, your spiritual sense shouldn't be able to escape their attention, right? Without this Xiao's secret technique, I'm afraid it won't be easy for you to reach the exit, right? Ao Qian was furious. Just as he was about to jump out, Ao Zhan hurriedly said, "Forget it. Since you're useful, why can't we train together?" Ao Qian was a bit angry. He glanced at Ao Zhan with dissatisfaction. Ao Zhan smiled bitterly. He couldn't tell Ao Qian about his agreement with Xiao Hua. With Ao Qian's temper, wouldn't he immediately fall out with the Stag King? Even Zhu Mei was involved? Good. Xiao Hua clapped. "We'll do as you say. How should I address you, immortal friend?" Ao Zhan immediately reported his name to Xiao Hua, but didn't reveal Ao Qian's identity. Xiao Hua didn't care. He looked around and his expression changed. He hurriedly urged, "Not good. That strange beast has already come out. Let's go." Zhu Mei's expression changed even more. He didn't know how Xiaohua sensed the strange beast's movements, but he didn't dare to release his spiritual sense. However, at this moment, a world-shaking roar sounded. A terrifying aura rushed towards them from afar. Who released their spiritual sense? Zhu Mei angrily scolded. Ao Qian shouted without any trace of politeness. Of course it's this king. If I don't look, who knows if Xiaohua is telling the truth? Damn it. Zhu Mei knew Ao Qian wasn't wrong. However, he was still very angry that strange beasts were attracted. At this moment, old monster Zhifeng looked at Xiaohua's figure in shock. He said in a low voice, Your wind escape technique has actually reached such a level. If you don't leave now, you won't have the chance to. Xiaohua didn't answer. He didn't even turn his head. Little prince, let's go. Ao Zhan saw Xiaohua's serious tone, and knew he wasn't deliberately mystifying things. He hurriedly urged. A group of human monsters were fleeing in panic. Because of this strange beast's roar, many other strange beasts were attracted. If not for Xiaohua's spiritual sense and Zhu Mei, Ao Zhan and Ao Qian's bitter battle, they wouldn't have been able to escape safely. Of course, it was also because of this that Zhu Mei and Ao Qian's killing intent towards Xiaohua gradually disappeared. At least, before they found a way out, they wouldn't have any killing intent. The one leading the way was naturally still the Stag King. Although the path he took wasn't straight and they had to train and kill monsters along the way, the path the monsters took was quite a turn. However, as the monsters they encountered became stronger and stronger, the monsters also understood that this path should be correct. The exit of the training should be in the distance. As for Xiaohua, although he didn't show it on his face, he muttered in his heart. Because the path the Stag King led was where the bloodline of the Absolute Saint was, it was already different from the direction Si Yinding pointed out. However, after thinking about it, Xiaohua understood. He knew that there was probably more than one place in the legacy world where the bloodline of the ancient big monsters was stored. The bloodline of the fallen gold mountains Yu family might not be of a high level, so it might not be in the same place as the Stag King's bloodline. Therefore, when Ao Zhan occasionally asked about it via voice transmission, Xiaohua also told him his speculations without hiding anything. However, in his heart, he was secretly thinking about how he could obtain the bloodline of the Absolute Saint without letting Zhu Mei, Ao Qian, and the other monsters know. After advancing for a few days, there were a few more fierce battles. Not only were Zhu Mei, Ao Qian, and Ao Zhan wounded, but even Xiaohua's Transcendence golden body was torn in several places. A tall altar appeared in the distant sky. The Stag King pointed with his finger and said, Everyone, the exit of the Cold Spirit Valley is in front of us. As long as we kill our way to the altar, our training in the Cold Spirit Valley will be over. Motherfucker, this experience is too dangerous. No matter how proud Ao Qian was, he couldn't help but sigh at this time. I have also trained on the Dragon Island several times. Even the test on the Dragon Island seems to be not as fierce as the Cold Spirit Valley. Dragon Island? Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at Ao Zhan. In these few days, Ao Zhan was still very tight-lipped, and didn't reveal the location of the Dragon Island at all. Ao Shui smiled and said, Young Lord is right. If it weren't for the Stag King's guidance and Xiaohua's secret technique, our training would be 40% more difficult. It's more than 40%. Zhu Mei snorted coldly. We are simply opportunistic. How can this be considered training? How many strange beasts did you kill, and how many monster cores did you get? This Ao Shui was a little embarrassed. At this time Xiaohua suddenly shouted, Oh no, I understand. This last part should be the final test of the 100 Monsters Mountain. There seems to be some incomplete records in my ink cloud pupil. I didn't know before, but now I understand. As long as we pass this place, there will be another way out of the altar inside. Yes, that's right. The Stag King hurriedly echoed. As long as we pass the final test, our training will be over. As he spoke, the Stag King looked at his universe bracelet and smiled. Although this place is quite dangerous and is extremely unfavorable for our training, I have gained a lot. When I return to the 1,000 Monsters Sacred Realm, after a period of cultivation, I will definitely be able to enter. What kind of training is this? Ao Qian said unhappily. I almost became the food of the golden-winged rock, young lord. Xiaohua heard and his expression changed greatly. He hurriedly shouted, "You must be quiet. The monsters of the 100 Monsters Mountain are not to be talked about." Tchao Qian was somewhat familiar with Xiaohua. He sneered and said, "If you have the ability, let the golden-winged rock come again." Chapter 3776. At this moment, a clear cry came from afar. Wasn't that the golden-winged rock that Ao Qian, Ao Zhan, and Ao Shui were very afraid of? Damn it, it's really like a ghost that won't go away. Ao Qian's mouth was very hard, and his expression was also very arrogant. But in the face of a Xiantian great enemy, how could he dare to be careless? As he spoke, his figure flew towards the direction of the altar, completely ignoring Xiaohua. Ao Zhan and Ao Shui also looked at the golden-winged rock in the distance, and hurriedly flew in. Zhu Mei sneered. Could this be the legendary escape? Zhu Mei and Ao Qian had been fighting all the way until now, when they rushed to the last level of the altar. This half a step late, in his eyes, was not a small victory. Seeing Zhu Mei also fly away, Xiaohua looked at King Mulu and old monster Jifeng and said with a smile, "It seems that dragon meat is more fragrant, spreading thousands of miles with the wind. Even at the entrance of the 100 Monster Mountain, it can still attract the golden-winged Great Peng." The golden-winged rock's reputation was not just for show. Even Zhu Mei had fled. How could Mulu King and Jifeng not be scared? But the two demons had some small thoughts, so they managed to stay until the end. Jifeng glanced at Xiaohua and sneered. This old man feels that human meat is much more fragrant than dragon meat. Demons are demons. This Xiao disdains to be associated with them. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at Jifeng with contempt. He raised his head and laughed and flew after Zhu Mei. You Jifeng was so angry that his tail was trembling, and his rat claws pointed at Xiaohua's back as he shouted. Mulu King watched Xiaohua fly away, and his heart relaxed. He waved his hand and said, "Let's go. If you have the ability, go kill him." Jifeng stuttered a few times, then gritted his teeth and said, "Don't worry, this old man will definitely not let him leave Cold Spirit Valley. Whether he leaves or not, it has nothing to do with this king," the Stag King said indifferently. He also looked at the distant horizon with lingering fear. He stepped on the demon cloud and chased after them. The 6 demons flew for less than an hour. They saw that the ground was very calm, and they didn't see any powerful demon beasts. The 6 demons didn't dare to release their primordial thoughts, but Xiaohua used his soul consciousness to explore for a long time. He even looked at the altar several times, but he still didn't see anything unusual. How strange! Not only was Xiaohua astonished, but even the Stag King and the other monsters were also bewildered. If something was out of the ordinary, then it was a monster. These monsters naturally understood this principle, so in this calm, no one dared to lower their guard. They were even more cautious as they flew towards the altar, not daring to be too fast or too slow. Swish swish faintly, there seemed to be some kind of strange sound transmitted into Xiaohua's slightly opened illusion breaker Dharma eye. Xiaohua stared blankly. When he opened his Dharma eye to take a look, he found nothing. Judging from the Stag King's performance, there must be a true bloodline on the altar. As for whether there is true dragon blood, I don't know yet. Xiaohua looked at the altar and thought to himself. However, according to this Zhao's perception, there must be a holy bloodline on the altar. In other words, although the outer layer of the altar wasn't the last layer of the trial, it was where the strongest demonic beasts resided to protect the altar. But ouch! Xiaohua thought as he slowed down his flight. His eyes inadvertently looked at the ground, and he suddenly cried out involuntarily. What's wrong? Ao Zhan paid the most attention to Xiaohua. When he heard Xiaohua's cry, he hurriedly stopped and called out, "Fellow immortal Xiao, did you find something?" "General Ao, look at the ground. Is it different from what we passed before?" Xiaohua frowned and stopped in midair. "Different?" Ao Zhan also stopped. He looked at the ground and said curiously, "I don't see anything different." "No, it's different. This ground is too clean, isn't it?" "That's right." Xiaohua took a deep breath and said, "What we saw before was a desolate land. Whether it was the trees, rocks, or hills, they were all incomparably huge. Even the moss on the ground was frighteningly large. But here, not only are there no giant trees or rocks, even the ground is flat. There's no trace of moss or grass. There's more, Ao Shui said from the side. In other places, there are always bones, no matter how big or small they are. But here, there's not a single bone. Could it be that the demon beasts here want to devour even bones? There might not be any in the sky, but there might be some underground. Xiaohua pinched his chin and looked at the ground. He thought of the small demon beasts he encountered in the giant rocks. Who? Zhu Mei suddenly opened her mouth. Her scarlet-red bird head looked behind the demons. Swish swish, swish swish like a cool breeze. The light raindrops' dance became clearer in the demon's ears. Ma ants. Flying ants. Xiaohua's soul awareness swept across the area. He saw that within the range of 100 li to 1,000 li around the altar, hundreds of millions of ants were gushing out from the ground. Some crawled over, some raised their backs, and some fluttered their tiny wings and actually flew up. Seeing this, how could Xiaohua not be surprised? Weren't these the flying ants that Song Longzi left behind in his cave? Song Longzi, the tribulation-transcending senior from Taoism, must have been here. As for how Song Longzi came in, whether he managed to break through the encirclement of these flying ants and reach the altar, and what he obtained, of course, Xiaohua didn't know. But he didn't have the chance to think too much, because when his soul awareness swept over the flying ants, it was devoured by them. Xiaohua was scared out of his wits. This was soul sense, a divine ability mastered by millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountains. Not to mention the cultivators of Tao League, even the cultivators of Confucianism and Buddhism League were unable to detect it. Even though Tsang Longzi's divine will, Buddha's consciousness, and eye-clearing technique were all sealed in his immortal's cave, his soul sense was not sealed. In this legacy world, Yuan sense and divine sense could be detected by strange beasts, but soul awareness couldn't. This was one of the things that Xiaohua relied on when facing the 6 demons. Who would have thought that these tiny ants, the most lowly thing in the world, could devour Xiaohua's soul awareness? How could Xiaohua not panic? What was special was that when he looked up, he saw hundreds of millions of ants flying over, covering the sky and covering the earth. It was as if there were no other strange beasts in this legacy world, only these ants. Xiaohua immediately realized that even a tribulation-transcending cultivator as strong as Tsang Longzi couldn't avoid the attack of these flying ants, so he retreated in defeat. Then he saw fear in these lowly ants and realized that the heavenly Tao was everywhere. After realizing this, Xiaohua only had one thought in his mind: run. Needless to say, although he was still far from the altar, he was very close to the border where he came in. The strange phenomenon in this area was definitely caused by the ants, and the places where the giant trees and rocks were piled up were naturally places that the ants couldn't go. Although there was a golden-winged great pung at the border, compared to these densely packed ants, Xiaohua felt that the golden-winged great pung was more intimate. Xiaohua unfolded his body, and the air around him surged. He activated the wind escape technique, turned around, and rushed in this direction without saying anything to the 6 demons. Zhu Mei and the other demonic beasts were naturally not as quick as Xiaohua. Seeing such a pair of ants, although their hearts were startled, they did not care. After all, their bloodlines were many times stronger than ants. A high-level demonic beast could not be compared to a low-level ant. They still had the pride of a low-level ant. It wasn't until Xiaohua flew out dozens of feet in an instant that Ao Zhan suddenly noticed. He slightly turned his head and saw Xiaohua's departing figure. Surprised, he swept out his Yuan sense at the same time. Not good. Sure enough, his Yuan sense was like a meat bun hitting a dog. Once it landed on an ant, it was immediately nibbled away. Ao Zhan could even feel a kind of numbness coming from his Yuan sense. Ao Zhan's expression changed slightly, and he understood why Xiaohua made the prompt decision to escape. Just as Ao Zhan was about to warn Ao Qian, and take Ao Shui to turn around and escape, boom, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. The power of several stars and moons fell from the sky in the direction of Xiaohua's escape. Then Xiaohua gnashed his teeth and said, "How dare you, old demon Jifeng? When this Xiao escapes, the first thing I'll do is take your life." Ha ha ha, old demon Ji Feng's proud voice sounded. Little thing, you still want to take this old man's life? Think about how to escape from the mouths of these flying ants first. Ao Zhan looked over and saw a starlight that looked like a golden bell shining in the distance. Xiao Hua, who was flying in the air, was imprisoned in this golden bell. Looking at the top of the golden bell, there was a palm-sized bone. A strange talisman appeared on the bone. It was this talisman that released the restriction that captured Xiao Hua. Damn it, Xiao Hua's figure fell into the strange cage of the golden bell. He was extremely regretful in his heart. It wasn't that he didn't guard against Stag King and old demon Ji Feng, but old demon Ji Feng's strength was now inferior to his. Therefore, Xiao Hua placed his attention on Stag King. Moreover, when Xiao Hua escaped, old demon Ji Feng also had a panicked appearance. His acting was even better than Xiao Hua's. But who would have thought that when Xiao Hua had just flown several zhang, and was still paying attention to the Stag King's sneak attack, old monster Ji Feng actually opened his mouth, and that piece of broken bone flew into the air like a magic weapon. Before it even emitted a rumbling sound, the space around Xiao Hua for several zhang around him immediately lost all traces of wind. Xiao Hua's figure had just stopped, when a huge rumbling sound imprisoned him. The power of the stars and the moon was like a large hand that firmly held Xiao Hua in the air. He couldn't move at all. Moreover, the white bone talisman on the top of the golden bell flashed, and the power of the stars and moon in the sky continuously descended. Not only did the thickness of the golden bell increase, but the ants that were flying over were also abnormally active. Once they touched the power of the stars and the moon, the bodies of the ants suddenly became several times bigger. Moreover, their flying speed also increased several times. In the blink of an eye, the brilliance of the golden bell was already blocked by the ants. There were even more ants rushing towards the golden bell. Chapter 3777. Damned Little Rat. Ao Zhan looked and immediately made a decision. Not only did old demon Ji Feng block Xiao Hua's path of survival, he also blocked the path of survival of the other demons. The ants at the back had already surpassed the path at the front. Furthermore, there was still the golden-winged great pung that ate the heavenly dragon. How could Ao Zhan and the other two dragons retreat? Now their path of survival could only be in front of them. Go! Ao Zhan's figure swayed. Streaks of silver-white brilliance mixed with golden light surged out from his scales. Auspicious clouds appeared between his four claws. Waves of dragon chi also spurted out from his scales, protecting Ao Zhan's dragon body tightly. Ao Zhan let out a dragon roar, and the ants around 100 feet in front of him fell like dust. Ao Zhan roared and flew towards the empty space. Ao Qian and Ao Shui were overjoyed when Ao Zhan's dragon chi succeeded. They both activated the divine ability of the dragon race, and chased after Ao Zhan's back. The three dragons supported each other, and spat out dragon chi occasionally. In a short period of time, the ants that covered the sky and earth were unable to reach them. Compared to Ao Zhan and the other two dragons, Zhu Mei was even more arrogant. He only looked coldly at Xiao Hua being trapped. Then, with a long cry, the scarlet feathers on his body spread out. The flames on the feathers danced wildly, and all the ants that came into contact with the flames were all turned into ashes. However, Zhu Mei did not choose a specific direction, and escaped behind the three dragons. The Stag King was obviously shocked. However, a green demonic light and demonic cloud appeared around him. This light and cloud blocked the ants that pounced over. After escaping for a while, his heart gradually calmed down, and he seemed to have some confidence. Swoosh! Just as the Stag King activated the demonic cloud to escape, a gentle breeze blew. The inconspicuous old demon, Ji Feng, actually turned into a breeze and passed by him. Not many ants landed on his faint figure. Not only is this rat cunning, his strength has also improved by leaps and bounds. It has only been a few years since we last met. He is actually so powerful. The Stag King sucked in a breath of cold air. He could not help but look at old demon Ji Feng in a new light. If not for the appearance of these ants, who knows how long this guy would hide? The human race's Xiao Hua did not die in vain. The Stag King had just sighed for Xiao Hua when he heard a loud boom, in the midst of the hundreds of millions of tiny sounds of ants. The Stag King couldn't help but look back in shock. He saw a six-colored beam of light emerge from the pile of ants in the distance behind him. The ants in the beam of light turned into strands of dust, and a hole several zhang in size appeared in the pile of ants. However, although the beam of light was strong, the ants seemed to be endless. After the beam of light dimmed for a moment, the hole was about to be filled by ants again. However, after the light beam, a sword hum was heard, and a giant sword flew out from the hole. Although many ants were crushed by the sword light when it rushed out from the pile of ants, even more ants landed on the giant sword. As soon as the giant sword charged out of the ants, it immediately charged towards Mulu King. Transform into a sword? Xiaohua? A Confucian cultivator? The Stag King's expression changed greatly, and he was extremely shocked. Then, without thinking, he raised his 4 hooves and flew away. He would rather face more ants than follow behind old monster Zhifeng. Xiaohua's revenge was there, and he didn't want to be affected. How could old monster Zhifeng not know that the Stag King sensed something was wrong? He also didn't expect that the demon formation he recently obtained would be so easily broken by Xiaohua. When he saw Xiaohua transform into a sword and chase after him, his small rat eyes flashed with a cold light. The corner of his mouth twitched, and 2 sharp fangs extended from the side of his mouth. Compared to snake venom, rat venom might not be strong, but it was definitely fatal to humans. This was old monster Zhifeng's greatest secret. Not only that, old monster Zhifeng's sharp rat claw took out a white bone that was as thin as an elephant's tusk from the universe bracelet on his arm. The 2 ends of the white bone were sharp, and there were 3 talismans on the white bone. Although old monster Zhifeng had not activated the white bone, the power of the stars and the moon was already faintly descending. Of course, as the power of the stars and moon descended, even more ants rushed towards old monster Zhifeng. Just as old monster Zhifeng was waiting for him, Xiaohua, who had transformed into a sword, quickly rushed over, as if he wanted to take revenge on old monster Zhifeng. Actually, it wasn't just the Stag King who was wrong, old monster Zhifeng was also wrong. No matter how eager Xiaohua was for revenge, he wouldn't lose his reason and take revenge at this time. Xiaohua originally wanted to take advantage of the chaos to rush out and return to the original path. However, how could he distinguish the direction within the dense swarm of ants? However, since he was already wrong, Xiaohua's eyes narrowed, and he made the best of his mistake by looking at old monster Zhifeng. That sharp gaze was like a sword, directly piercing old monster Zhifeng's heart to shock. You're courting death. Seeing Xiaohua rushing over, old monster Zhifeng raised his hand and waved the white bone. Boom boom, the power of the stars and moon that was rarely seen even in the 1,000 demons' sacred realm, came crashing down. It was the same as the righteous qi used by Confucian cultivators. Unfortunately, at the same time that white bones expanded, old demon Zhifeng was slightly stunned because Xiaohua's sharp gaze swept past him, and Xiaohua simply disregarded him. Old monster Zhifeng's heart was somewhat strange, and his hand unconsciously became sluggish. It was also at this time that Xiaohua's cold laughter unexpectedly came from old monster Zhifeng's ears. Not good. Old monster Zhifeng was stunned, and thought to himself, this old man was tricked. However, old monster Zhifeng still didn't understand how he was tricked, and what Xiaohua tricked him into doing. At this time, a sharp pain came from the depths of his mind, as if an invisible giant axe was chopping into his skull. Facing Xiaohua's soul stab and soul cultivation secret technique attack, old monster Zhifeng was caught unprepared, and his wind-like figure staggered a few times in the air before falling to the ground. Just as old monster Zhifeng lost his balance, a golden light flew out from Xiaohua's sword light, and in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, it chopped off old monster Zhifeng's suddenly raised tail. The reason why old monster Zhifeng's tail was raised was to balance his body. Now that the soaring dragon shears suddenly cut off his tail, how could old monster Zhifeng still maintain his balance? His staggered figure tumbled a few times in the air before falling to the ground. Woo-woo, just as old monster Zhifeng's thin and short legs touched the ground, thousands of ants took the opportunity to pounce on him. Old monster Zhifeng's 2 small claws covered his head, and just as he was about to use the wind escape technique to fly up, his small tail swayed a few times, and his body didn't fly up. Instead, his entire body rolled on the ground. This time, old monster Zhifeng was miserable. Not only the ants flying in the sky, even the ants on the ground were stained with old monster Zhifeng's body. Boom! Old monster Zhifeng's body was surrounded by a demonic wind, and hundreds of ants were blown up by this demonic wind. However, when the demonic wind rose, even more ants rushed over. Damn it! Old monster Zhifeng cursed angrily in his heart. Enduring the pain in his head, he waved his hand, and a few feet long, grayish-white brilliance with the thickness of a thumb appeared. It flew out 1,000 feet, and wherever the 1,000 feet brilliance passed by, countless ants turned into dust. Unfortunately, what made old monster Zhifeng's heart jump was that after the brilliance passed, even more ants pounced on the white bones. Sha-sha amidst the rustling sound, whether it was the white bones, talismans, or starlight, they were all cleanly devoured by the ants. His old monster Zhifeng sucked in a breath of cold air, and an indescribable panic emerged from the bottom of his heart. However, this panic only lasted for a few breaths, and a numb feeling that directly penetrated into his bone marrow and soul came from the surface of his body. Old monster Zhifeng hurriedly looked over, and saw that the layers of ants had already covered his body like clothes. The demonic chi protecting his body had already disappeared, and in this short period of time, thousands of ants had already bitten his body. The demonic body that had been refined for thousands of years was now like grass in the mouths of ants, and he was completely unable to resist. Not good! Old monster Zhifeng exclaimed, and his body twisted extremely, as if he wanted to escape from being devoured by the ants. However, after twisting a few times, old monster Zhifeng stopped. How can I stop? I can't stop. Old monster Zhifeng hurriedly shouted in his heart, but his body did not listen to his thoughts. It was as if the feeling of being devoured by ants was the most profound enjoyment, and being devoured by ants was his life's greatest pursuit. Ah! Old monster Zhifeng roared as if he had gone mad, and his two thin and short legs quickly ran forward, as if he wanted to escape this strange feeling. Unfortunately, he was only able to take 2 steps before his entire body stopped. At this moment, the white bones of his thin and short legs could be seen. Crack crack! 2 weak and crisp sounds rang out. The bones of old demon Zhifeng's legs were broken. His entire body curled up and fell to the ground. Following the momentum of his previous charge, he slowly rolled. Not to mention flying, he couldn't even run. Just as old monster Zhifeng was lying down, an inconceivable expression appeared in his eyes, and he looked straight at the sky. He actually spoke the demonic language of the 1,000 demonic sacred realm. What is this? Ancient magnificent scene? Ancient bloodline? This is the inheritance of our demonic sacred realm? Just like how Xiaohua saw Tsang Langzi's comprehension of the heavenly Tao on the path understanding ants, old monster Zhifeng also saw the mystery that he yearned for even in his dreams on these ants. The light in his eyes was abnormally bright. However, this light only flashed in old monster Zhifeng's eyes for a moment, and then it dimmed. Swoosh 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 like the north wind blowing through the snow. The layers of snow rolled up, revealing the scorched earth. This scorched earth was like old monster Zhifeng's white bones, and it was quickly devoured by the ants. The strangest thing was that the heaven and earth bracelet on old monster Zhifeng's arm was also devoured by the ants. The items inside were not exposed because of the heaven and earth bracelet's damage, and they simply fell into the ants' stomachs, disappearing without a trace. Chapter 3778. This is too strange. Xiaohua's sneak attack on old monster Zhifeng had succeeded, so he naturally paid attention to old monster Zhifeng's life and death. He released a powerful divine sense, and while resisting the ants' devouring, he also deliberately probed. Seeing old monster Zhifeng being strangely killed by the ants that blotted out the sky without leaving a single trace behind, Xiaohua couldn't help but shrink his neck. He could already imagine how many cultivators and demons had fallen here since ancient times. Damn it, I didn't expect these ants to be the most powerful beasts in the relic realm. Xiaohua withdrew his divine sense in a panic. His eyes turned rapidly as he thought of a way to escape. At this moment, Xiaohua was far away from Ao Zhan and the others, but he was on par with the Stag King. However, when he saw the ants on the Stag King and then looked at himself, he couldn't help but frown. Although there were many ants on the Stag King, The speed at which they devoured the demonic clouds and demonic aura on the Stag King was relatively slow. He looked at the ants outside his sword light. Not only were there many of them, but they were also crazy, biting the sword light at an extremely fast speed. Xiao Hua knew that the sword light was formed from the true qi of his Confucian cultivation. When the sword light was completely devoured, the true qi in his middle dantian would also be finished. If it was an ordinary Confucian cultivator, he would probably end up in the ant's stomach. Of course, Xiao Hua didn't only have the Confucian true qi, but also his lower dantian and Buddha's saraira. However, if Xiao Hua couldn't find a way to escape before these divine powers were exhausted, he would follow in old monster Zhifeng's footsteps. Could it be that these ants are especially sensitive to the righteous qi of Confucian cultivators, the heaven-earth essence qi of Taoism, and the Buddha's light of Buddhism? Xiao Hua thought to himself, is it because there's the bloodline of the absolute saint and all kinds of true blood on the altar that the ancient big demon is afraid of humans taking it away or destroying it? But the problem is that although I know some demonic cultivation methods and my body is comparable to a demon's, I don't have any demonic clouds or demonic aura. What if I use demonic aura? Xiao Hua was just thinking about it, but he immediately gave up on the idea because his gaze fell on the Stag King. Although there were many ants around King Mulu, he was not as panicked as old monster Zhifeng. He was even looking at Xiao Hua strangely, and his flying figure slowed down a little. What's the Stag King trying to do? Was he not afraid of these ants? Or perhaps he knows how to escape? Xiao Hua was extremely bewildered. However, when his gaze swept across the universe bracelet on King Stag's arm, Xiao Hua came to a realization. At the same time, the huge rock in his heart also fell. Haha, I understand now. What the Stag King relied on was nothing more than his token. Taking the token of the legacy world represented the inheritance of the legacy world's great demon's true blood. The legacy world's forbidden technique would not disregard the life and death of these demons. Although the ants at the edge of the altar were powerful, they were merely testing the strength of the demon that had taken the token. With the Stag King's strength, he was qualified to obtain the true blood. Therefore, at the most critical moment, the token would help him escape. Fuck, since the token was useful, didn't this Xiao also have a token? My strength surpasses that of the Stag King, so wouldn't I be more confident than him? As for why the Stag King didn't fly far away and insisted on paying attention to this Xiao here, it seems like he was still worried about this Xiao. He wanted to see if this Xiao had a token or jade eyes. His previous actions were indeed to scheme against Ao Zhan and the other dragon generals, but how did he scheme? Hehe, previously you schemed against Ao Zhan, and now you want to scheme against this Xiao? You're still far from it. The reason why humans are human is because they have humanity and brains. They are the leader of all creatures. Xiao Hua understood the Stag King's plan and sneered in his heart. How could this Xiao reveal the token in front of you? This Xiao has plenty of methods to escape. Of course, Xiao Hua couldn't reveal the token in front of all the demons. The demons might not fight for the Stag King's token because it was the token of the Deer clan, but Xiao Hua's token didn't belong to the Yao clan. Xiao Hua couldn't guarantee that Ao Qian and Zhu Mei wouldn't covet it. As for Ao Zhan, although he could trust him, Xiao Hua still felt that it was better not to use such a huge temptation to test him. Rumble, the power of Xiao Hua's sword seemed to be earth-shattering. The huge sword cry covered the sounds of the ants. Correspondingly, even more ants seemed to be attracted by Xiao Hua's sword light, forming a huge ant tide and pouncing towards Xiao Hua. The sword cry was unstoppable, but the sword light had long been covered by the ants, just like the stars and moon above the demons' heads. Darkness without light, this was Xiao Hua's current situation. The more arrogant Xiao Hua was, the more ants piled up. He didn't see Xiao Hua take out any token to escape, so the Stag King's heart was completely at ease. He no longer cared about Xiao Hua and urged the demon cloud to charge towards the altar. Damn it, this definitely won't work. Xiao Hua flew for the time it took to eat a meal. He felt that his body was extremely heavy, and the true qi in his middle dantian was especially heavy. Moreover, a kind of indescribable comfort came from the surface of his body, just like the feeling he had when he was comprehending the Tao on the sea bed. Not good. That comfort easily led Xiao Hua into a state of comprehension. The moment Xiao Hua's mind was at ease, he suddenly woke up. This Xiao just came out of Tsang Longzi's state of comprehension. How could I have comprehended the Tao so quickly? This is definitely a trap. It's the ant's poison. When old monster Jifeng was swallowed, the strange smile that came from the ant's crack, was it this? And Senior Tsang Longzi? At this moment, Xiao Hua also understood why Tsang Longzi wanted to condense his comprehension into the ants. It was because his comprehension really did come from the ants. And it really was the feeling between life and death. It was no longer important whether Tsang Longzi had obtained a true spirit bloodline or a supreme saint bloodline. For a Taoist cultivator who could escape from the encirclement of flying ants, there was nothing more important than comprehending the Tao. Clang, the sword aura around Xiao Hua's body once again flourished. It was as if he was raising his hands to lift an ant that weighed tens of thousands of caddies. When the ant at the bottom was annihilated by the sword aura, Xiao Hua pressed down on his teeth. The Kunlun mirror shook, and another beam of light shot out. Xiao Hua's figure rapidly shrank. With a rumbling sound of thunder, he escaped through the gap of the beam of light. Xiao Hua's body had just escaped when the ants, which were denser than raindrops, pounced on Xiao Hua again. Xiao Hua naturally didn't dare to release his divine sense. He could only look with his eyes and unconsciously sighed. This was because the sky had already become a world of ants. The altar in the distance was already long gone. Other than ants, there were more ants. The torrent of ants completely protected the altar. Looking at his body, although the protective golden light flickered, the ants didn't fear the golden light at all. They were still crazily swallowing it without any scruples. They're not afraid of eating too much and getting diarrhea. Xiao Hua looked at these ants with great appetites. He really didn't know what to do. 1, 2, 100, 1,000, or even 10,000 ants were easy to deal with. Xiao Hua had enough means to kill them all. But now, it wasn't just hundreds of millions of ants. Every inch of space in the sky and on the ground was filled with ants. Xiao Hua couldn't kill them all. Woo! Xiao Hua slapped his forehead, and a big hand rushed out and scooped up the space in front of him. The space in front of him was immediately swept clean. Xiao Hua urged the lightning escape technique and hurriedly flew over, but right after he flew over, the space was once again filled with ants. It was even faster than Traceless Spring Dream. Just like this, while activating the nascent soul's hand and using the lightning escape technique, Xiao Hua tried his best to ensure that the number of ants outside his body was maintained within a range he could bear. After flying for another hour, Xiao Hua felt that his magic power was exhausted too much. He didn't dare to use the nascent soul's hand again. Moreover, the lightning released by the lightning escape technique was devoured by the ants. The speed of the lightning escape technique couldn't be increased later. Xiao Hua could even see a familiar brilliance from the corner of his eyes. Wasn't it the Stag King's token? The token protected his body. Although there were ants outside the brilliance of the token, it was obvious that the ants weren't particularly crazy about devouring. Therefore, when the Stag King increased his flying speed later, there weren't too many ants pouncing over. He wasn't left behind by Xiao Hua too much. This is what it means to be hasty. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment. He released his divine sense to protect his body. Then he controlled his divine sense to rotate and overflow on the surface of his body like water. Sure enough, this method was extremely effective. Xiao Hua's control of his divine sense was relatively rough before. The divine sense hammer was like falling rocks and stars. Now that he was controlling it to the finest detail, he was a little unfamiliar at first. From time to time, ants would invade the depths of his divine sense, causing Xiao Hua to be a little flustered. However, after half a meal, Xiao Hua was already familiar with it. His divine sense flowed like flowing water, and Xiao Hua seemed to be wearing a layer of divine sense armor that blocked the attacks of the ants. After flying for the time it took to eat a meal, Xiao Hua's heart finally relaxed. Although he didn't fly too fast during this period of time, correspondingly he encountered fewer ants. In particular, the consumption of his spiritual sense during this period of time was far less than before. Xiao Hua was confident that he could persevere until he reached the altar. Moreover, Xiao Hua also found something strange. The speed at which these ants devoured true qi and magic power was far faster than divine sense. And the speed at which they devoured soul consciousness was faster than true qi. Xiaohua stole a glance at the familiar brilliance in the distance. Of course, the speed at which they devoured demonic qi is probably the slowest. I just don't know what happened to the 3 dragons of the East Sea Dragon Palace. And that vermilion bird. The Stag King, who was hiding in the brilliance of the token, naturally also saw Xiaohua's abnormality. He was equally surprised. He only saw that Xiaohua didn't have the token of the legacy realm, but he didn't know what methods he used. His original plan changed again. Chapter 3779. Unfortunately, plans could never keep up with changes. After flying for another 2 hours, the altar in the distance still hadn't appeared. The light on the token in the Stag King's hand was almost completely devoured by the ants. The Stag King began to panic again. But when he looked at Xiaohua again, his speed was still the same, about the same as his. The black mass of ants was still pouring in from time to time, but it didn't increase. It was as if all the ants that poured in were killed by Xiaohua. Damn it, I'll go all out. The Stag King clenched his teeth and his body began to expand. The monster cloud under his feet didn't dare to hold back and accelerated forward. Seeing that the Stag King was staking everything on a single throw, Xiaohua wasn't as relaxed as the Stag King thought. His divine sense was also extremely exhausted. If he didn't need to rely on the Stag King to find the altar, Xiaohua would have already used the lightning escape technique and rushed forward. Since he couldn't increase his speed, Xiaohua naturally had to think about what to do when he reached the altar. Xiaohua even looked at the densely packed ants outside, wondering if he should take out the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal now, or wait until he returned from the altar to save Tao Wu. These flying ants were definitely the best way to kill the Minglu chain. Stag King, don't run. Seeing the Stag King suddenly accelerate, Xiaohua hurriedly shouted, I still need you to lead me to the altar. Fortunately, Xiaohua's voice didn't spread too far, and the Stag King was focused on escaping. Otherwise, the Stag King might not be able to recognize the direction after vomiting blood. Xiaohua hurriedly moved his body. He didn't dare to consume too much of his magic power, and only used the wind escape technique. However, after flying for half a meal's worth of time, boom! In the distance, there was an earth-shaking explosion. Then, a biting cold aura of desolation washed over like a tide. Wherever this aura passed, no matter if it was Xiaohua's body or the surrounding air, all the ants turned into flying ash and disappeared. The black and gray color that covered the sky and the earth was instantly dispelled, revealing a clear starry sky. The nearby ants were destroyed by this aura, and Xiaohua's figure was also unable to stabilize. He was sent tumbling back several li by this aura. However, as soon as the ants disappeared, Xiaohua raised his eyes and saw the altar not far away. At this time, it was emitting a roaring sound. Just like the altar he had seen behind Songlongzi's cave, it was slowly uprooting from the ground. Like a fountain, talismans spurted out from the top of the altar, and then turned into a waterfall. When these talismans fell below the altar, they drilled into the ground and disappeared. The terrifying aura of the untainted land flowed out from these talismans like a waterfall. Moreover, as the altar rose higher, the aura became more and more violent. Looking at the bottom of the altar, 2 huge dragons with broken scales and bloodstains on their bodies were powerlessly struggling in the aura. One of the dragons was holding a small dragon that was struggling at death's door in its claws. Half of that small dragon's tail was broken, and one of its claws and half of its dragon horn were also missing. Next to the 3 dragons, a vermilion bird with a bald tail was standing in the air like a rooster that had lost a fight. It was very unwilling to admit defeat. Not to mention that its scarlet feathers were in disarray, and not to mention that half of its tail was missing. Just the dim scarlet flames around its body was enough to show that Zhu Mei was in a sorry state. However, although the 4 demons were in an extremely sorry state, they were the same as Xiaohua. They were staring blankly at the altar in front of them, and had long forgotten about their own injuries and embarrassment. At this time, the altar changed again. Endless nebula light pillars surged and fell, as if this altar was the only thing in the entire legacy realm. Boom boom as the power of the stars and the moon, which was difficult to see with the naked eye, fell. The talismans that had previously flooded out swelled uncontrollably. Those talismans then turned into totems. These totems washed over the altar over and over again, and gradually began to fill up again. In the end, it actually formed a picture of 1,000 demons. One by one, the great demons revealed their ferocious faces and revealed their supreme domineering aura, completely protecting the entire altar. This Zhu Mei's eyes revealed shock. From what he had seen, even with his inheritance, there had never been such an inconceivable altar, let alone Xiaohua. Zhu Mei turned his head to look at Aozhan. Aozhan was just as stunned as him. Obviously, even in the Dragon Palace, there had never been such an altar. Is this the test of passing the last trial? Aozhan was surprised, but his face also revealed an excited expression. He was very curious about the things on the altar. As he spoke, he couldn't help but urge his wounded dragon body to rush toward the picture of 1,000 demons. Young prince. Aozhan was scared out of his wits. He didn't care about Ao Shuai and his dragon claws and shouted to block Aozhan. He said, "Don't move." Aozhan was a little unhappy. He glanced at Zhu Mei and muttered, "Since we've already reached the exit, why are you still being modest?" Aozhan thought for a moment and resisted the urge to tell him about the legacy realm. He only smiled bitterly and said, "Young prince, although we passed the test of ants, who knows if that was the last trial? It's not too late to wait and ask King Mulu before making a decision." Ao Shuai almost died. How could King Mulu still be alive? Aozhan didn't quite believe it, but when he released his primordial thought, he was surprised again. Not only was King Mulu flying over with an extremely dim token in his hand, but Xiaohua also seemed to be flying over easily. Damn it, what kind of world is this? Aozhan looked at the demon and human, then at the scars on his dragon body, and cursed inwardly. I can't even compare to a Taoist cultivator. Oh, how is Inspector Ao? King Mulu flew over and hurriedly asked when he saw Ao Shuai in such a state. Aozhan glanced at King Mulu and said coldly, "Thank you for your concern, King Mulu. Fortunately, Ao Shuai won't die for the time being. Let's get out of Cold Spirit Valley first. Only by returning to the East Sea Dragon Palace can Ao Shuai's life truly be saved." Okay. King Mulu raised his eyes to look at the seemingly alive great demons. His eyes were filled with indescribable joy. He nodded and said, "I'll prepare to break the restriction. The exit should be behind this demon formation." With that, King Mulu took out another beast's skin and pretended to look at it. Of course, Aozhan didn't believe King Mulu. He put Ao Shuai on the ground first, then took out a strange scale armor. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of dragon chi. The scale armor instantly became huge. When Aozhan grabbed Ao Shuai's dragon body and put him inside, Xiaohua realized that the scale armor was actually somewhat similar to the Heaven and Earth bracelet. After putting away the scale armor, Aozhan glanced at Zhu Mei, who was using a secret technique to absorb the power of the stars and moon to heal her injuries. He transmitted his voice to Xiaohua and asked, "Xiaohua, this altar, is it where the demon bloodline is placed? Can this demon formation be broken with a token?" "General Ao." Xiaohua lowered his head and didn't approach the 4 demons. He transmitted his voice. "I've already told you clearly that this direction is where the demon bloodline is located. Before the ants came out, I could still sense it. Now that the ants are gone and the demon formation has appeared again, I can't sense it. However, I've seen this altar before when I came in. It should be here. As for how to break the demon formation, I really don't know. There's no record of it in the token. Perhaps King Mulu's token will have it. After all, I came in through a different way than you all." And Aozhan also had no other choice. He had already endured until here. He could only endure until there was a chance to rush into the altar. Moreover, he didn't believe that King Mulu could sense that he had found a flaw. Even if King Mulu had some tricks up his sleeve, Aozhan wasn't afraid. However, Xiaohua still reminded Aozhan, "General Ao, if King Mulu has any tricks up his sleeve, it's in this token. When you break the restriction here, you should be more careful." "Alright, I naturally know this." Aozhan transmitted his voice. "I hope fellow Immortal Xiao will also be on the lookout." "That's not a problem. Xiaohua smiled. After a full hour, King Mulu raised his head and looked at the three demons. He then turned to Xiaohua and said, Xiaohua, is there a way to break the restriction and enter the exit in your ink cloud pupil? Xiaohua shook his head and said, I've already said that the ink cloud pupil I obtained is somewhat incomplete. The location of the exit is recorded, but the ants, the altar, are all missing. I still want to borrow fellow immortals' power to get out. Hee, without a way to break the restriction, you dare to come in? King Mulu said with some mockery. Xiaohua shrugged his shoulders. It doesn't matter. Our Dao sect cultivators have a hard time cultivating in hidden immortal continent. With this kind of training opportunity, even if I know it's dangerous, I'll still come in. Why so much nonsense? Zhu Mei said unhappily. King Mulu, quickly tell us, how do we break the restriction and find the exit? King Mulu ignored Xiaohua and said to Zhu Mei with a smile. It's very simple. Just like before. There, we'll attack together. At the end, I'll activate the token. And this time, we don't need to activate essence blood. But Zhu Mei looked at Xiaohua and asked again. Old demon Jifeng is dead, Ao Shui is seriously injured, and this Xiaohua is also human. With only us 4 demons, can we do it? Of course we can. King Mulu said confidently. You 3 demons form a triangle, I'll be in the middle. With our power, we can definitely break the restriction. Alright. Zhu Mei looked and said, quickly assign a position. I have a bad feeling. We'd better get out of here as soon as possible. General Ao, please, King Mulu said from high up in the sky. Ao Zhanjia pondered and flew into the sky. Little prince, please, Zhu Mei, please. King Mulu pointed to 2 places. The 2 demons also flew over. Seeing King Mulu's gaze, Xiaohua retreated a few dozen feet and waved his hand. I'll stay away from you guys. Feel free to do whatever you want. Xiaohua, don't you have any ideas? Zhu Mei warned. If we can break the restriction and find the exit, we'll definitely take you away. If you cause trouble, don't blame us for being ruthless. Chapter 3780. Hee, rest assured, fellow immortals. This Xiao knows what to do. Xiaohua readily agreed. Rise, the 3 demons followed the Stag King's command, and used their own demonic techniques. Rays of moon and star power fell around them. However, when the demonic energy of the 3 demons fell into the demonic formation, it didn't move at all. It was like a clay ox entering the sea. Without waiting for Ao Zhan to question, the Stag King waved his hand and the antler flew into the air. Pooh, the Stag King actually spat out another mouthful of essence blood. Boom, the antler emitted a bloody light. This time, the antler didn't turn into a cauldron. Instead, as the essence blood spread, it turned into a somewhat damaged large deer. This large deer was very sturdy. Its dense aura was very similar to the 10,000 demon diagram. Seeing this, the Stag King smirked and grabbed the antler. The large deer let out a roar, and was about to move. Wait! Suddenly, Ao Zhan descended from the sky and stood in front of the large deer as he shouted loudly, Senior brother, you're going to die. Ah! The Stag King was shocked and asked, General Ao, what's the matter? This one wants to ask the Stag King, is this the Legacy Realm or the Cold Spirit Valley? If you rush into the altar and don't come back, what should we do if the demonic formation of the 10,000 demon diagram hasn't been broken? Ao Zhan stared at the Stag King and asked word by word. What? Legacy Realm? This is the Legacy Realm? When Zhu Mei and Ao Qian heard this, they couldn't help but gasp. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Ao Qian even shouted, the Legacy Realm is only a legend. How could this be the Legacy Realm? Who? Just as the Stag King was at a loss and didn't know how to answer, the distant Xiaohua suddenly exclaimed, looking at the flat ground below Ao Qian. A small dragon suddenly flew out. This small dragon's color was the same as the ground, but when it flew into the air, it changed again. Although this dragon's body was full of wounds, this small dragon approached Ao Qian faster than lightning. When it opened its mouth, a dark red brilliance rushed out, and was about to nail Ao Qian's body. Ao Qian was stunned when he heard about the Legacy Realm, and couldn't react in time. Seeing the change, he hurriedly twisted his dragon body and dodged to the side. Ao Zhan was even more shocked, but when he saw that Ao Qian dodged the dark red brilliance, he relaxed. However, his expression changed again. How could he still care to stop the Stag King? He shouted, "Little prince, be careful!" Then he swung his dragon body and flew towards the side where the little prince was dodging. However, Ao Zhan was too late. Just as Ao Qian dodged, another small dragon flew up from the ground. This small dragon was missing half of its tail. This small dragon had just pounced on Ao Qian, and the dragon aura around it flourished. Rumble! A huge sound was heard, and the huge dragon's body completely exploded. Dozens of red brilliance mixed with hundreds of scales and other things rushed into Ao Qian's dragon body. Ao Qian's dragon body flipped a few times in the air, and was lifted high. Then it fell heavily on the ground, smashing a huge hole in the ground. The explosive power of this small dragon was so great that Xiaohua and Ao Zhan's bodies were also overturned. The human and dragon's bodies tumbled in the air. Even the thousand fei diagram that fell from the altar flashed rapidly, like a curtain blown by the wind. After a few breaths, the air waves subsided. Within a few miles, there was a layer of blood. In the air, other than Xiaohua and Ao Zhan, there was only the dumbfounded Zhu Mei. Whether it was the Stag King or the small dragon that attacked Ao Qian, they had all disappeared. Damn it! Ao Zhan's dragon eyes were red, as if he had gone mad. He quickly rushed to Ao Qian's side. When he flipped Ao Qian's dragon body over with his dragon claws, he saw that the dragon body was riddled with holes. 60% of the dragon scales were torn, and the dragon blood that flowed out was black. Obviously, the small dragon that had just exploded was poisoned. Ao Zhan roared at the sky. His dragon body flew up, creating countless air waves. Ao Zhan swept with his yuan will as he flew. He looked around the altar, but obviously, he didn't find the small dragon that attacked him. When Ao Zhan was about to fly further away to search, he saw that there were still ants in the distant sky that hadn't completely disappeared. Oh my god! What's with these two small dragons? Xiaohua was a little dumbfounded. They actually chased him all the way here. Really amazing. In that case, the cry of the golden-winged rock before we met the ants should have been from chasing these two small dragons? That Xiaohua whispered. General Ao, let's see if the young prince can be saved first. Since the Stag King is gone, maybe the small dragon followed him into the altar. Impossible, Zhu Mei said coldly. The token of the legacy realm can only be used by one monster. That small dragon can't enter. How do you know? Ao Zhan stared at Zhu Mei, his eyes full of hatred. He knew that it was inappropriate. Zhu Mei really didn't know about the Stag King's scheme. Do you need me to explain about the inheritance? Zhu Mei retorted. If you believed me, you would have told me that this was the legacy realm. Would so many things have happened? How do I know if you're in cahoots with the Stag King? Ao Zhan sneered. Forget it, Xiaohua hurriedly said. General Ao, it's useless to say anything now. Let's hurry and see the young prince. After all, it's useless. Ao Zhan sighed. These two small dragons know the weakness of the East Sea Dragon clan. The poison they used isn't something I can cure right now. Send it into your dragon shell, and bring it back to the East Sea Dragon Palace. Zhu Mei said indifferently. Dragon shell can't stop the poison. If there's no effective spiritual item, the young prince will die in half an hour. Ao Zhan bit his lip and said. What spiritual item do you need? Xiaohua urged. Dragon God Grass. Ao Zhan was somewhat impatient. He seemed to be in a bad mood. That's the treasure of Dragon Island. Zhu Mei sneered. Your East Sea Dragon Palace might have half of it. What else? Xiaohua didn't give up. Only this? Yes, only this thing can cure the poison. Ao Zhan was dejected. He looked sadly at Ao Qian, whose flesh was festering. If we have the dragon's saliva of a true dragon, maybe we can buy sometime, Zhu Mei said. Then we can put Ao Qian into the dragon shell. When we return to the East Sea Dragon Palace, how about this? Xiaohua took out the green dragon saliva without hesitation. Seats green dragon saliva? Ao Zhan sniffled slightly and immediately came to his senses. He practically snatched the Azure Abyss dragon saliva away. Without even asking Xiaohua, he hurriedly flew in front of Ao Qian. and placed the Azure Abyss Dragon's saliva into Ao Qian's mouth. Sure enough, the green light mixed with ice froze Ao Qian's dragon body. The black dragon blood no longer flowed out. Fu Ao Zhan let out a long sigh and hurriedly took out the long bay to put Ao Qian away. Just as he was about to speak, his expression changed slightly. With a wave of his hand, a half-inch broken waist token fell into his hand. Isn't this the West? Zhu Mei saw the origin of the waist token at a glance. However, he only said one word, and then closed his mouth again. This kind of sensitive thing was not something he could talk about. Ao Zhan's expression remained unchanged. He put away the broken waist token, and turned to look at Xiao Hua. After pondering for a moment, he took out a long dragon pendant from his bosom, and handed it to Xiao Hua. Fellow immortal Xiao, I can't thank you enough for your kindness. This is my token. Please accept it. I remember that fellow immortal seemed to have said something before. When fellow immortal is free, you can take this thing to the East Sea Dragon Palace. Good. Xiao Hua nodded and carefully put away the dragon pendant. He cupped his hands and said, I will need General Ao's help in the future. And Ao Zhan nodded. He looked at the myriad demon picture on the altar and said, Now, I will listen to fellow immortal Xiao. At this point, Ao Zhan looked at Zhu Mei, who was flapping her wings slightly, and warned, Zhu Mei, don't think too much. You are definitely not a match for me and Xiao Hua. Even if I can't get the true spirit bloodline and enter the altar, I will not let you hurt fellow immortal Xiao. Of course, if you sincerely cooperate with us, we may have a way to go in. Zhu Mei naturally had other plans. He might not have the intention to hurt Xiao Hua, but he definitely had the intention to steal Xiao Hua's keepsake. Of course, he also knew that Xiao Hua was now bound to Ao Zhan. Otherwise, how could he have waited for so long? Even if you have the keepsake, only one can go in. Zhu Mei sneered. I want to see how you will get out after he goes in. Ao Zhan was not flustered. He said indifferently, There will always be a way. Maybe the Stag King inside will get the true blood, and the altar will change. Even if there is no way, I will let fellow immortal Xiao go in first. Xiao Hua looked at the demon formation on the altar and said confidently, There is no need for that. Oh, what method does fellow immortal Xiao have? Zhu Mei changed the way she addressed him and asked curiously. Xiao Hua was glad. Fortunately, when the ants appeared, he did not throw out the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal. Now he could use it to break the seal. I have this. Xiao Hua smiled and took out the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal. This. Zhu Mei did not understand. Ao Zhan raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, Fellow immortal Xiao actually has the Immortal Palace's Heaven's Punishment prison crystal? We can give it a try. Fellow immortal Zhu General Ao. Xiao Hua looked at Zhu Mei and Ao Zhan. I have the same keepsake as the Stag King, so there is no problem for me to go in. My Heaven's Punishment prison crystal is locked by the law of the Immortal Palace's Jade Seal. The law of the Immortal Palace's inscriptions need to be unlocked. If it is forcibly broken, the law of the Immortal Palace's power of law will counterattack. I cannot guarantee that the power of law will be able to break the demon formation, but I can give it a try. The two of you should be prepared. If possible, please try to go in. Okay. Zhu Mei nodded. If I go in, I will owe you a favor. Chapter 3781. Well said. Xiao Hua looked around and reminded the two demons. When this Xiao uses this Heaven's Punishment prison crystal, the two of you should help me look around. This Xiao has always felt that something is wrong. And fellow immortal Xiao, you can rest assured. Ao Zhan said coldly. This one is afraid that he won't come out. Xiao Hua didn't say anything else after hearing that. He walked to the front of the demon array, and looked at the big demon totems that were whistling down. With a wave of his hand, the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal fell into it. On the 10,000 demon picture, a big demon with 3 heads and 2 arms coincidentally flew down, and crashed into the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal. The big demon totem opened its mouth as if it was alive. A thick demon aura mixed with thousands of starlight crashed into the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal. Shua, just like the collapse of the inscription law chain that night, hundreds of inscription laws began to flicker. Under the impact of the demon aura, These inscription laws gave rise to an indescribable fluctuation. Then, with a kacha, a total of 9 different colored thunderbolts came out from the inscription laws. Then 9 dragon-shaped phantoms appeared from the thunderbolts. The 9 dragons danced and condensed into an oval phantom. A suffocating supreme aura suddenly rushed out from the oval phantom and directly crashed into the big demon totem. Aolo, the big demon totem, suddenly roared, and the entire 10,000 demon diagram instantly stopped. Within the diagram, every totem opened their mouths and spat out a strand of crystal silk. Tens of thousands of crystal silk threads were like thunderbolts as they attacked the oval-shaped shadow of the 9 dragons. Roar! The 9 dragons roared out. Every scale exploded. Flickering fine inscription law chains appeared again and rushed towards the thousands upon thousands of crystal silk. Boom, boom, boom! An inconceivable vision appeared in front of Xiaohua's eyes. In the midst of the rumbling, everything froze. Distortions appeared in the crystal threads and chains. The distortions were like millions of strange little hands that tore apart tiny spatial cracks. There was no awe-inspiring chi within those cracks, nor was there the power of the stars and the moon. There was only an indescribable strangeness leaking out from those cracks. Ding, ding, dong, dong! In the distortions, Xiaohua felt that time had stopped. But suddenly, a strange heavenly music came out of the distortions. Then a fist-sized palace flew out of the inscription law chain. This palace was completely formed by lightning. Purple, black, and yellow lightning formed the entire palace. When the palace appeared, the 10,000 demon picture suddenly moved. Thousands of light pillars of stars and moon fell from the sky. The crystal silk that was several times thicker than before covered the palace like a fishing net. Boom! The Thunder Palace instantly disintegrated and turned into a powerful attack. Thousands of lightning bolts rushed towards the crystal silk. The rich power of the rules forced Xiaohua, Aozhan, and Zhu Mei to retreat more than 30 meters. Roar! Among the thousands upon thousands of crystal silk, there seemed to be the sole essence of a great demon. They were abnormally fierce, and the vast aura was not inferior to the power of the rules of the thunder. It's time! Xiaohua saw this and hurriedly shouted, "My 2 immortal friends, quickly get ready!" Boom! With a huge roar, an extremely powerful aura was born from the 10,000 Fei diagram. The entire world was shaking, and even the 10,000 Fei diagram that had been stagnant was lifted up high, revealing a faint crack. Roar! Zhu Mei and Aozhan saw a rare opportunity. How could they hold back? They really used all their strength. Their entire demon bodies shrank to the extreme and rushed towards the center of the roar. At the place where the demon formation collided with the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal, a whirlpool dozens of meters wide appeared. The whirlpool was surrounded by dense spatial cracks. Only the center of the whirlpool began to reveal a rich demonic aura. After the lightning palace flew out, it turned into a grayish-white Heaven's Punishment prison crystal. After the lightning did not return, it actually cracked open with a kacha sound. Tao Wu's figure suddenly flew out from inside. The moment she appeared, the strong suction force in the surroundings seemed to want to tear her into pieces. Ah! Tao Wu's face, which was originally pleasantly surprised, instantly turned pale. In particular, in the huge roar, the 2 demon bodies had already broken through. Tao Wu had no choice but to raise her hand and prepare to face the enemy. No one move. We're all on the same side. Xiaohua was already prepared. He shouted loudly. The Kunlun Mirror's light pillar arrived first, covering Tao Wu's body. Daoist Xiao, the fragments of the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal. When Tao Wu heard Xiaohua's voice, her face showed joy. She did not resist the Kunlun Mirror's light pillar. Instead, she loudly reminded. As for Zhu Mei and Aozhan, both of them wholeheartedly rushed into the altar. As long as Tao Wu did not provoke them, how could they casually make a move? Boom! The Kunlun Mirror's light pillar withdrew. Tao Wu and the fragments of the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal disappeared. At the same time, Zhu Mei and Aozhan's demon bodies did their best to resist the suction force of the void, and also disappeared at the end of the whirlpool. As the roar disappeared, the entire 10,000 demon picture started to move again. The whirlpool was also pushed into the demon formation that was densely filled with the aura of desolation, and disappeared in a flash. In this legacy world, there was no Heaven's Earth origin chi and no noble chi. The Heaven's Punishment prison crystal was really not a match for the 10,000 demon picture. Haha, Xiaohua clapped his hands and laughed. He looked left and right and hurriedly took out the token. He did not dare to be too negligent and rushed into the demon formation. Fortunately, when he saw the totem fall, the token emitted a silver-white brilliance and wrapped him up. The entire brilliance turned into a strange totem and brought him into the 10,000 demon picture. Xiaohua's heart finally relaxed. The dragon that sneak-attacked Ao Qian had probably already escaped far away. Inside the 10,000 demon picture, Xiaohua's body flashed with a gentle brilliance. Endless information was transmitted from the token, making Xiaohua feel that the vicious great demons in front of him had come to life. Not only that, scenes of desolation passed through the brilliance of the 10,000 demon picture and penetrated into Xiaohua's mind. In this desolation scene, there were giant apes overturning mountains, giant dragons overturning seas, giants lifting the sky, and even many demons fighting. Xiaohua had never seen anything like this before. The time it took to pass through the 10,000 demon picture seemed very short, but for Xiaohua, it was extremely long. It was so long that his mind was in great pain, and the blood in his body seemed to be boiling. In particular, Xiaohua's body had an indescribable impulse. It was as if it wanted to spread its wings and fly, as if it wanted to be reborn. In the end, Xiaohua's eyes lit up. A huge bone-white altar appeared in front of him. Everything Xiaohua had just seen was actually slowly disappearing. However, Xiaohua didn't have to think about it. His blood boiled and flowed rapidly again. He completely broke away from the demonic technique of the blood drop paradise. The scene that was about to disappear suddenly became clear. It was as if it had been engraved and would never disappear again. The power of the bloodline. Xiaohua suddenly realized. If it wasn't for this Zhao's unique bloodline, even if this Xiao had seen the desolation of desolation, he definitely wouldn't have been able to remember it. This should be the truth of the desolation of desolation, and ancient times being annihilated in time. Hahaha, Xiaohua had just flown out of the 10,000 demon picture, when he heard an extremely arrogant laughter from the 9th heaven. Wasn't that the Stag King who had come in earlier? When Xiaohua scanned it with his divine sense, his expression changed slightly. Because divine sense couldn't leave his body, Buddhist sense and soul sense couldn't be used either. Needless to say, near the altar, only demonic abilities could be used. And these abilities, Xiaohua wasn't proficient in them. Xiaohua put away the keepsake and looked up. He saw that this was a tall altar that directly pierced into the moon and stars. The altar was completely gray and was completely made of white bones. On the white bones, there were many lifelike great demon totems engraved. Every layer had a totem, and these totems emitted different auras. His Xiaohua took a small breath and squinted his eyes to look at the sky. He saw that in the sky, Ao Zhan had transformed into a giant dragon that was thousands of feet long. Not far from Ao Zhan, there was a vermilion bird that was also thousands of feet long with red flames flashing around its body. It was Zhu Mei who had recovered her demonic body. Mu Lu King Zhu Mei's voice seemed to resound through heaven and earth. I helped you enter the relic realm, but you actually schemed against me. Not to mention that I won't stop you from obtaining the true spirit blood of the ancient deer clan. Even if you obtain it, I will still kill you. Do you know? Zhu Mei. Stag King's voice wasn't inferior to Zhu Mei's. It was equally deafening. This king would rather bring old monster Zhifeng to this altar than bring you and the 3 evil dragons. Why? Ao Zhan's voice was very calm. Like a bolt from the blue. Stag King replied. Because this king can't bear to see your arrogant faces. This king is also the king of my deer clan, but in front of you, I'm just like old monster Zhifeng. When there's something to do, I'll casually point my fingers, and when there's nothing to do, I'll scold you. What do you think you're waiting for? Isn't it just that your bloodline is nobler than this king's? Compared to the difficulty of cultivation, can you compare to this king and old monster Zhifeng? This king really wants to stomp your faces under my feet, and stomp them into meat patties. If that's the case, why did you invite me? Why do you have to be so servile in front of me? Zhu Mei didn't care and sneered. Haha, of course it's because you're strong. Stag King laughed. Previously, this king only thought this place was the Cold Spirit Valley, a place to gain experience. I invited you here just to protect you. Without your essence blood, the door to the legacy realm really isn't easy to open. Ao Zhan pressed. What kind of demon attacked my dragon palace's young prince earlier? I'll be honest with you, Ao Zhan. The Stag King replied. This king's token was originally damaged. You all already knew this. This king doesn't even know who that dragon is. It must be because the entrance wasn't completely closed. It must be your East Sea Dragon Palace's mortal enemy who tracked it here. Of course, that human Xiaohua actually didn't need demon blood to enter, so his token must be intact. Maybe that dragon was brought in by Xiaohua. It's also possible. Chapter 3782. Bullshit. Xiaohua could no longer hold it in. He cursed angrily while activating the Dharma embodiment of heaven and earth. His entire body suddenly expanded, and the immortal body enhancement technique madly absorbed the extremely rich power of the stars and moon. His body grew to a size of several hundred feet before stopping. At the same time, Xiaohua didn't need to use any flying technique at all. He lifted his foot and walked up to the sky as if there were steps under his feet. The Stag King didn't care about Xiaohua's appearance and said indifferently, "Only you and I have the token. Since it wasn't me who brought it here, it must be you. Moreover, since you have the ability to send Zhu Mei and Ao Zhan to the altar, you naturally have the ability to bring that dragon to the relic realm." Xiaohua walked up to the sky and followed the direction of the voice. He saw that the Deer King was already at a part of the altar. On the bone-white altar, a totem that was slightly different from the Deer King's was engraved there. The strange totem jumped like flames, and a blood-red aura gushed out of the Stag King's body like a blood mist, connecting with the totem. Tiny wisps of blood jumped from the totem and flashed into the Deer King's body. General Ao. Xiaohua, who had calmed down, ignored the Stag King's provocation and said, "It seems like the Stag King doesn't know the truth. Maybe he's faking it." Zhu Mei hated the Stag King to the core and said, "You didn't see his face after entering the relic realm. He acted as if it was real. If you and Ao Zhan hadn't exposed his face in the end, I would still be in the dark and still want to work for him." Haha, the Stag King laughed. "Let's go. I've already begun to merge with the blood essence of my ancient deer demon. Although this bloodline is not as good as yours, I'm one step ahead. After merging, I'll definitely kill you all." "Damn it. Why are you biting words like a Confucian cultivator?" Ao Zhan roared and pounced on the Deer King with his huge dragon body. Boom! A huge white bone flashed across the white bone altar in front of the Deer King. A blood-red thunderbolt appeared on the white bone, and Ao Zhan's dragon body was sent rolling. White bones. Xiaohua's eyes widened, and a pleasant surprise flashed through his eyes. Although this white bone didn't look any different from the other white bones, Xiaohua recognized it at a glance. Wasn't this the incomplete white bone from his space? Zhu Mei moved as well. A ball of fire flew towards Mulu King. Crack, crack, crack. Without any suspense, another bone flew out from the altar and blocked the flame. A huge lightning bolt rushed out from the bone and extinguished the flame in an instant. How can white bones be so powerful? Xiaohua was a little dumbfounded. Zhu Mei and Ao Zhan are demonic beast generals. Even though I didn't fight with them directly, their strength should be at the upper stages of the 6th grade of essence power, or even the 7th grade of essence power. This mere masterless skeleton was actually able to block one of their attacks. Zhu Mei seemed to have become angry out of humiliation. She let out another shrill cry, and a demonic aura that seemed capable of destroying heaven and earth shot out from her mouth. The demonic aura condensed into a huge talisman that instantly crossed the space of 10,000 feet and grabbed the altar. The power of the stars and the moon was swept away, and everything was frozen. The power of laws? In the distance, Xiaohua squinted his eyes and saw the faint runes that flashed through the space of 10,000 feet. Although the runes only existed for a short period of time, this space of 10,000 feet was already under Zhu Mei's control. No, it's not just the power of laws. Xiaohua looked at the dark red flame beside the talisman, and suddenly came to a realization. This is the law of fire that Zhu Mei obtained from comprehending the power of fire as a prodigy of the vermilion bird race. I understand now. Everything in the world has its own laws. Boom! The moment Xiaohua comprehended, the stars in the space above exploded one by one. Morning stars were born one after another. And heavenly Dao Xiaohua transmitted a lot of enlightenment. Haha. Are you jealous? Zhu Mei, I really didn't expect that this king would see a day when you're jealous of this king. The Stag King laughed loudly as if he was looking at a clown. Zhu Mei's shocking attack landed on the white bone altar without causing any waves at all. He laughed arrogantly and said, "Unfortunately, it's too late for you to be jealous. You don't have to be jealous in the future. This king is going to fuse with the essence blood of the ancient deer demon and devour your essence blood in a while." Wu, the blood mist around the Stag King made a strange sound. It was still somewhat under control before, but now it completely pounced on the blood flames of the totem. Crack, 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 like a dead tree burning in flames. The sound of explosions came from the totem. Then the blood color of the totem gradually faded, and a Stag King that was completely the same as the totem and completely different from the Stag King was born from the blood flames. As the Stag King poked its head out, an extremely fierce aura was emitted. It was the aura of the true ancient beast that Xiaohua saw in the desolate landscape. The blood flames seemed to be boiling as they emitted gurgling sounds. Damn it! Zhu Mei's body flipped in the air. Ao Zhan also roared, preparing to use dragon power and other Dragon Clan techniques. But at this moment, the boiling blood flames suddenly surged violently, and the Stag King's head that had already been born showed extreme panic. What's going on? Oh! Seeing that the Stag King had been reborn, Zhu Mei and Ao Zhan hurriedly stopped in the air and looked at everything in front of them with schadenfreude. It seemed that they didn't mind adding insult to injury at any time. The blood flame swelled uncontrollably like a huge blood bubble. The head that had already grown out seemed to have been blown. Then, blood thorns pierced out of the head one by one. Beams of starlight and moonlight fell on these blood thorns, and the moaning of the Stag King could be heard endlessly. I understand. Suddenly, Zhu Mei laughed loudly and pointed at the Stag King with her wings. Stag King, oh Stag King, you don't seem to have the pure bloodline of the Deer Clan, do you? You're just a bastard. Stag King, you've really been caught in a trap of your own making. Ao Zhan also laughed. How could you possibly bear the pure bloodline of the ancient Deer Clan? The inheritance in that bloodline isn't something that your impure blood essence can bear. You reap what you sow. Zhu Mei added. This king is the king of the Deer Clan. The Stag King's voice was still panting. How is this possible? Boom! Before King Stag could finish his words, there was a loud bang and the blood bubble burst open. Thousands of tiny pieces of flesh flew out from the blood bubble. The blood bubble then shrank and fell into the totem. The blood flame on the totem disappeared at the same time, and the totem returned to its original state. Great! Zhu Mei laughed loudly, and the crimson flames rushed into the sky, looking extremely excited. Ao Zhan was naturally happy, but then he looked at Xiaohua and said, "Fellow immortal Xiao." Xiaohua smiled bitterly and his mouth was bitter. Needless to say, even the Stag King's bloodline was impure and couldn't bear the ancient blood essence. So how could he bear it? Even the fallen Gold Mountains Yu family wouldn't be able to. They already had the bloodline of the human clan, and only a very small amount of true blood remained in their bloodline. Don't worry about me. Xiaohua waved his hand. I didn't expect this either. Fortunately, the Stag King was one step ahead, otherwise, I would also have fallen here. Then Xiaohua looked at Zhu Mei and smiled. Since fellow immortal Zhu and General Ao's bloodline is different, and the totems you use are also different, there shouldn't be any conflicts. Since we met here, it's also fate. This Xiao doesn't know what you'll do to the human clan in the future, but this Xiao hopes that the two of you won't fight amongst yourselves. Xiaohua, if this one finds out about the dragon vow, I'm afraid this one won't be able to. Ao Zhan smiled. But this one can tell fellow immortal for sure. This one will retreat wherever fellow immortal goes. Hee, there's no need for that. Xiaohua waved his hand. The human clan and the demon clan are both in the 3 continents, and we share weal and woe. It's enough that we both remember the good of the other. Alright, I can also answer fellow immortal Xiao in the same way. Zhu Mei withdrew her flame and looked at the altar. I already owed you a favor when I came in earlier. And now you've received the true blood of my ancient vermilion bird clan. This favor is really beyond redemption. I'll remember it in my heart. Then, Zhu Mei said to Ao Zhan, do you want to go first or should I? Naturally, you'll go first. Ao Zhan smiled. Your vermilion bird clan is at the bottom, so it's a bit closer than this one. Zhu Mei snorted coldly. Indeed, at the highest point of the altar, there was a huge dragon. This totem was several times bigger than the phoenix below. Of course, the aura of the dragon and phoenix seemed to be on par, but it was unknown how much stronger it was than the vermilion bird below. Seeing this, Xiaohua suddenly thought of something and hurriedly called out. That's right, fellow immortals. This Xiao forgot to say that this Xiao has already used his token. In the future, this Xiao won't be able to find the legacy realm, and similarly won't be able to enter the legacy realm. This Xiao hopes that even if fellow immortals want to find the legacy realm again, this Xiao won't involve this Xiao. Of course, Ao Zhan said without even thinking. There's only one ancient true dragon bloodline. If this one obtains it, how can other dragons obtain it? This one still wants fellow immortals to help me keep this a secret. Zhu Mei looked at Xiaohua. This is also what I wanted to say. Haha, since that's the case, we'll have a tacit understanding. Xiaohua was overjoyed. So no one wanted to let others know. Of course, fellow immortal Xiao, did you see those places? Ao Zhan smiled and waved his dragon claw, pointing at the lower part of the altar. It seems like, in the early years of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, there were a few great sages, whose true forms were like this. Xiaohua looked over. Indeed, those totems were completely dim, without any vitality or aura at all. Obviously, they had already been taken by other demons. It would have been better if Ao Zhan hadn't mentioned the great sages. Once he mentioned the great sages, not to mention Ao Zhan's eyes, even Zhu Mei was abnormally excited. Chapter 3783. I'll go first. Zhu Mei looked at the blood of the vermilion bird that was like a crimson sun. The closer he got, the brighter it became. How could he bear it? With a shout, he flew towards the altar. As his huge body approached the altar, his body gradually shrank. When he landed on the altar, he was about the same size as Mulu King. As soon as Zhu Mei landed, there was a loud buzzing sound. The totem that she had been waiting for who knew how many years suddenly lit up. A blood-red flame rushed straight towards Zhu Mei. Zhu Mei didn't dare to be careless. Her face became dignified. She retracted her wings and flames rose from her wings. A crimson blood mist came out of her body and fell towards the flame. Zhu Mei couldn't help but scream as soon as he touched the flame. Xiaohua was shocked and hurriedly asked, General Ao, Zhu Mei, he's fine. Ao Zhan waved his hand indifferently. This is the ancient mark in his bloodline. It's attacking his mind. His bloodline isn't very pure right now, so he can't bear it. When he came out of the Thousand Fei picture, he also screamed. Yes. Xiaohua answered casually. However, his mind turned quickly. After thinking for a while, he asked, is it the primordial scene in the Thousand Fei picture? Yes. Ao Zhan smiled. You may have a token to protect you, but Zhu Mei and I don't. The inheritance in a flash is enough to drive us crazy. However, after so long, we've forgotten a lot of those primordial scenes. Xiaohua smiled. However, a storm was raging in his heart. If Ao Zhan and Zhu Mei couldn't bear the primordial scene, then what about him? Their bloodline couldn't bear it, but he saw it from the beginning to the end. But in an instant, Xiaohua smiled again. Ao Zhan's flash of thought was obviously not a flash of thought. Ao Zhan was hiding this. But no matter what, if Ao Zhan and Zhu Mei's bloodline could withstand it, then he could also withstand it. Of course, he could use his true bloodline. But the problem is Xiaohua was stunned again. Am I a human or a monster? How can my bloodline compare to the dragon and vermilion bird clan? General Ao, could it be that we humans can't touch the true bloodline at all? Xiaohua asked in a low voice. Ao Zhan thought that Xiaohua was unwilling in his heart, so he said with a straight face, Indeed, the bloodline of the human race is extremely weak. Even if it is mixed with the bloodline of the demon race, it will not be of much use. Of course, I also know that on the hidden immortal continent, There are some people with true bloodlines who also have inherited memories and secret techniques. However, fellow immortal Xiao should know that this legacy world was left behind by an ancient big demon. It is completely different from those so-called true bloodlines. Fellow immortal Xiao, you should think of another way. Alright. In fact, when Xiao Hua thought of the vermilion bird, he immediately thought of Fairy Hongxia and Huang Mingxiang. He indeed wanted to get some true bloodline out. Seeing that Xiao Hua was a little disappointed, Ao Zhan thought for a moment, and took out a jade eye. He stuck it on his forehead for a moment and handed it to Xiao Hua. Fellow immortal Xiao, you don't have to regret it. This is the secret technique of my dragon race to collect true blood. You can try it first. If he could do it, he might as well start from the bottom of the altar and find a low-level great demon. When he had the chance in the future, he would give it a try, so that you won't have wasted your trip to the legacy realm. Oh, remember, you must try it when you are confident. Otherwise, you will end up like the Stag King. This Xiao naturally understands. Many thanks, General Ao. Xiao Hua hurriedly took it with a smile and stuck it on his forehead. He said, how should I collect this true bloodline? It is all in the jade eye. Ao Zhan smiled and reminded again. This one understands the disappointment in fellow immortal Zhao's heart. However, this one still hopes that fellow immortal Xiao won't rashly try it. I understand. Xiao Hua nodded gratefully. Looking at the altar at this time, Zhu Mei was no longer wailing. The totem turned into a blood-red flame and wrapped him up, similar to the Stag King before. After a while, a bald vermilion bird head poked out of the blood mass. Ha ha ha! Ao Zhan clapped and laughed. Zhu Mei has lost a lot of face this time. Damn, a bald vermilion bird. Just looking at it makes me envious. Sure enough, Zhu Mei came out of the blood mass little by little. Not a single feather could be seen. Following his appearance, the blood mass became smaller and smaller, and the totem also gradually faded. Boom! When Zhu Mei's body was more than half out, the light beam of the moon and stars arrived as expected. At the same time, the blood mass rapidly swelled, and feathers grew out from Zhu Mei's body. Bzzz! Suddenly, the ball of blood surged again. Zhu Mei's body also stopped. A phantom image that resembled a flying phoenix appeared around his body. However, it only lasted for a moment. A strand of crimson flame flew out from the ball of blood and landed on the phantom image. The phantom image instantly turned into ashes and disappeared. That blood mass shrank faster, and a painful expression appeared on Zhu Mei's face. Fortunately, Ao Zhan smiled faintly. This Zhu Mei's bloodline is actually not pure. However, that impure bloodline actually came from a phoenix, so it didn't affect his integration with the vermilion bird true blood. So simple. He integrated with the true blood? Xiao Hua was somewhat surprised. Of course not. Ao Zhan smiled. A true rebirth and absorption of the true blood would take thousands of years. Once Zhu Mei completely absorbs it, he can reach the devouring void realm and directly break through the void. Of course, my dragon clan doesn't have any records of this, so I don't know the specific situation. However, this record is from me. Congratulations, General Ao. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and smiled. Unfortunately, although he noticed the pride in Ao Zhan's words, he didn't notice the other layer of meaning in Ao Zhan's words. More than 2 hours later, Zhu Mei let out a brisk cry and flew out of the blood mass in perfect condition. This body was much smaller than before, and the flames had also disappeared. Looking at the half-drop of true blood in the air, it didn't completely disappear. It seemed to be left behind because of Zhu Mei's impure bloodline. Boom! Before Zhu Mei could say anything, a small hole appeared on the altar, and a huge light beam covered Zhu Mei. Zhu Mei's body was involuntarily pulled towards the small hole by the light beam. Many thanks, fellow immortal Xiao. Zhu Mei suddenly stuck his head out and caught the half-drop of essence blood. He shook his head and threw the essence blood out of the light beam and shouted. As soon as the essence blood left the light beam, it immediately turned into a blood-red vermilion bird, ready to rush towards the altar. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He immediately used the heaven and earth sleeve technique and covered the blood-red vermilion bird. The blood-red vermilion bird struggled for a moment before disappearing in the air. Ao Zhan's face showed a trace of strangeness. He looked at Zhu Mei's figure disappearing in the light beam in disbelief, then looked at Xiao Hua and thoughtfully said, "This Zhu Mei is quite calculating. It seems like he's not like Ao Qian, who only knows how to be domineering." At this time, he actually began to repay fellow immortal Zhao's kindness. "This is good." Xiao Hua smiled and put the vermilion bird true blood into the space. He let the green-robed Xiao Hua suppress it with a jade bottle and runes. He looked at Ao Zhan and said, "If General Ao has such thoughts, it would be impolite for me to refuse." "Good, good, good." Ao Zhan laughed and rushed to the top of the altar. "If this old man's bloodline is not pure, I will also give the remaining essence blood to fellow immortal Xiao." Xiao Hua quietly stood in the air and looked at Ao Zhan fusing with the true dragon bloodline. Sure enough, the conceited Ao Zhan had the ability to be conceited. The time he took to absorb the true dragon bloodline was 3 times longer than Zhu Mei. However, behind Ao Zhan, there was also an extremely small drop of blood left. It seemed like his bloodline was also not pure. Of course, when the blood fused with the bloodline, Xiao Hua pretended not to see that inexplicable shadow of a flood dragon. "Many thanks, fellow immortal Xiao." Ao Zhan did not go back on his words. When his figure flew into the light beam, he gave the trace of bloodline to Xiao Hua. "We will meet again someday." "We will meet again someday, General Ao." Xiao Hua put away the bloodline and cupped his hands with a smile. When Ao Zhan disappeared, the entire altar was calm again. The dragon-shaped totem at the top was grayish-white, similar to the vermilion bird below. Xiao Hua looked at the phoenix under the dragon-shaped totem. In the end, he still remembered Fairy Hongxia, who he could not forget. Although Fairy Hongxia said clearly when she broke up with Xiao Hua in the Dawn Rain continent, she said that she had to carefully consider her relationship with Xiao Hua. If she could not think it through, she would not look for Xiao Hua again. However, when Xiao Hua disappeared from the Dawn Rain continent, he did not see Fairy Hongxia again. Of course, the two of them had not been separated for long. Perhaps Fairy Hongxia had not thought it through, but it could not be said that Fairy Hongxia had given up on Xiao Hua. In comparison, Xue Xue's feelings for Xiao Hua were so meaningful. It made Xiao Hua feel incomparable regret and emotions. Therefore, when Fairy Hongxia was compared to Xue Xue, Xiao Hua felt a little disappointed. However, Fairy Hongxia had a physical relationship with Xiao Hua. After all, she was Xiao Hua's true dual cultivation partner. How could Xiao Hua forget her from his heart? Unless Xiao Hua heard Fairy Hongxia say that she was unwilling to do so. Now that there was an excellent opportunity to let Fairy Hongxia advance, how could Xiao Hua not think of her? Think of that beautiful woman on the other side, Lian Yuanzi? Forget it, Xiao Hua sighed. He closed his eyes and carefully comprehended the secret technique of the dragon race that Ao Zhan sent to him. After an hour, he opened his eyes. He did not circulate his magic power. Instead, a green light flashed between his eyebrows. His soul thread stretched out like a large hand. Xiao Hua actually used the secret technique of the dragon race to display a soul cultivation technique to plunder the phoenix bloodline. Kacha, just as the soul strand neared the altar, a huge white bone emerged from the altar. A bolt of lightning shot out from the white bone towards the soul strand. Xiao Hua chuckled. The soul strand also produced a bolt of lightning and fused with the bolt of lightning. As a result, the white bone floated in the air for a moment before falling back to the altar. Xiao Hua could clearly see that the white bone didn't fuse with the altar. Instead, it hung on it. Chapter 3784. Ka. As the hand of soul touched the totem, a phoenix cry that Xiao Hua was both familiar and unfamiliar with rang out from the totem. A huge sky-blue phoenix phantom flew out of the totem. Inside the phoenix phantom, there was a bloodline that looked like scarlet jade embedded in it. Under the power of the stars and the moon, it gave off a terrifying aura that wasn't the slightest bit inferior to the true dragon bloodline that Ao Zhan had stimulated just now. That sharp, proud, and unparalleled primeval aura instantly filled the entire altar. Withdraw, Xiao Hua reprimanded in a low voice. The hand of soul gently sank into the phoenix phantom and landed on one of the sparkling and translucent strands of blood. With just one touch, the phoenix phantom exploded with a bang, and a ball of sky blue light soared into the sky and pounced on Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua didn't panic. and even felt extremely warm from the aura that pounced on him. However, when the light was only 1,000 feet away, Xiaohua's body trembled slightly. It was as if he was resisting it, as if he was looking down on it. His entire body strangely retreated, and the moment he retreated, the soul thread smoothly extracted that bit of blood from his body. Just like before, as soon as the blood was separated, it immediately turned into another small phoenix phantom, and was about to enter the bigger one. Xiaohua waved his large sleeve and unceremoniously put it away in his space. As for the phoenix phantom, it paused slightly when Xiaohua retreated, and then shrank back into the totem. It looks like my body has something to do with this phoenix bloodline. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes as he looked at the phoenix totem, and pondered to himself. Otherwise, there's no way I'm familiar with this bloodline, and there's no way my phoenix dharma body would look like a phoenix. Also, although I've never reached the top of the altar, I already know that the supreme holy bloodline is up there. Restraining his impulsive body, Xiaohua's gaze followed the altar from top to bottom. Unfortunately, he only looked for a moment before he became impatient. His mind entered his space, and after a brief discussion with the green-robed Xiaohua, he clapped his hand, and Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede flew out. When the two demons saw the altar, their bodies immediately trembled like sifting chaff, as if an innate fear had sprung up in their hearts. Look at your little faces. Xiaohua slapped Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede and shouted, "No matter what, you are still demons who have been separated into yin and yang in this old man's space. Even that lifeless transcendent treasure could become a capital spiritual treasure. How could you all be inferior to them? Go. Let's see what kind of opportunity you've been waiting for." Xiaohua had originally intended to give this opportunity to Fujiwen. However, looking at this altar and the entire relic world, there was simply no place where Fujiwen could take advantage of. Even if the bloodline on this altar could be used by Fujiwen. Xiaohua recalled that Tao Wu was a member of the Immortal Palace, and instantly dispelled this thought. It might not be a big deal for Fujiwen to know some Taoist magic, but if he had the blood of the demon tribe, how could the Immortal Palace rest assured about his marriage with Momo? Thus, Xiaohua let out Little Silver and the others, who hadn't planned to come out. It was just that he had been a little worried earlier. After all, the bloodlines of Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede might not be as good as that of the Stag King. However, Green-Robe Xiaohua vowed that he had already seen the blood of the true dragon and the vermilion bird which Xiaohua had put into his space, and felt that Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede, who had been separated into yin and yang, wouldn't have any problems. Even if they had to suffer a little, they would definitely be able to absorb the ancient bloodlines of these two demons. Only then did Xiaohua feel at ease letting the two demons out. Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede trembled at first, but then they slowly gathered their courage. Encouraged by Xiaohua, they flew down a little gingerly, each searching for a familiar aura. "There's still you." After sending off Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede, Xiaohua took out Little Thunder, who was still in a daze, and flicked his head to wake him up. Sure enough, when Little Thunder opened his eyes, he was full of energy. He didn't need Xiaohua's reminder at all as he flew towards a totem not far away that wasn't particularly similar to the Thunder Beast. Looking at the lightning flashing on the totem, Little Thunder cried out as he fell into a blood-red thunderbolt. Xiaohua smiled and said, "In the end, you have to find your own opportunities and look for your own bloodline. You can naturally look for what you can, but how would I know what you can't? It looks like I can only look for them one by one." That's right, in Xiaohua's space, in addition to Xiaolei, there was also the Dream Dragonfly Butterfly, the Iceworm King Egg, and even the Water Pattern Butterfly. These were monsters, but Xiaohua couldn't guarantee that their ancestors would be the same as them. Moreover, Xiaohua also knew that there was more than one altar in the legacy world, so their bloodline might not necessarily be here. See Nine-Tailed Fox. Just as Xiaohua was looking down the altar, a nine-tailed fox totem suddenly appeared in front of him. Although he had never seen this demonic beast before, his heart suddenly jumped as soon as he saw the totem, as if this totem was extremely important to him. What's going on? Xiaohua was a little puzzled. He closed his eyes and pondered for a moment before he had a slight idea. Damn it, It feels like the karma spell I used near Broken Heart Mountain earlier. At that time, although I couldn't predict Fujiwan's fate and the spell wasn't perfect, it still left a trace. It looks like I need to collect this nine-tailed fox bloodline. But a mere drop doesn't seem to have any meaning. Xiaohua was in a difficult position again. Do I have the ability to collect it completely? Could it be that I'm mistaken? Maybe that's the only way. Xiaohua looked at the white bones next to the nine-tailed fox totem and made a decision in his heart. Immediately, Xiaohua no longer dared to be negligent. He searched layer by layer and finally found the totem of the dream sea butterfly, the ice worm king's egg, and other totem on the lower level of the altar. Moreover, to Xiaohua's surprise, except for the water pattern butterfly, which had a little accident and almost exploded to death, everything else went smoothly. Each and every one of them was slowly being reborn in the blood mist. Of course, in addition to these little things, there was also Dai, in Xiaohua's space. Facing a little white goose that could reveal the secret of his space at any time, Xiaohua didn't dare to take her out. Although Xiaohua saw a totem that was very similar to her on the altar, he only dared to collect a little bit of blood essence. If there was a chance in the future, he could give it to Dai, Since these little things were absorbing the ancient bloodline on the altar, Xiaohua had no choice but to wait. The greedy Xiaohua simply flew to the top of the altar and urged the soul thread and the secret technique of the dragon clan to collect them one by one from top to bottom. It seemed that if it was possible, the greedy Xiaohua even wanted to move the entire altar from the legacy world to his space. Of course, Xiaohua wasn't just thinking about collecting the blood essence of these big ancient demons. He was also looking at the distribution of the white bones. After all, this altar was so high and so big that it was impossible for every level to be protected by white bones. Sure enough, when Xiaohua painstakingly flew to the middle of the altar, those huge white bones had already disappeared and were replaced by other white bones and other strange demon artifacts. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaohua was enjoying himself and didn't know how hard it was. It wasn't until Little Silver cheerfully jumped onto him that he broke away from the joy of his harvest. When he saw Little Silver's appearance, he couldn't help but stare blankly. Little Silver didn't look any different from before, but the feeling he gave Xiaohua was very different. Little Silver had been clever and lovable before, and even cute. Now Little Silver gave off a vast and enormous feeling. Although his body was still so small, there was an inexplicable sharpness in Xiaohua's gaze, which stung his eyes a little. Damn it, Xiaohua sighed with emotion in his heart. As expected of the primeval bloodline, it's only been a moment, but it's already been reborn. If this little spirit mouse is already like this, then what about the vermilion bird and the dragon? This way, this Xiao is even more looking forward to the supreme holy bloodline. Little Silver landed on Xiaohua, his little eyes already beginning to narrow. Xiaohua knew that the power of the bloodline had already taken effect, and Little Silver was likely going to advance again. Thus, he hurriedly put Little Silver away and stopped his diligent harvesting. He turned around and put the water-patterned butterfly, the iceworm king egg, and so on that he had absorbed the primeval bloodline into his space one by one. As for Little Lei, Xiaohua really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This guy had long become muddle-headed after absorbing the bloodline, and even in his muddle-headed state, he still hugged the white bone on the altar tightly and refused to let go, as if he knew it was something good. After that, Xiaohua continued to harvest with extreme patience and perseverance. When he finished harvesting all the primeval bloodlines on the altar, even someone as strong as Xiaohua felt a little dizzy. After all, this was delicate work, and couldn't be carried out in large quantities at the same time using divine abilities. Using embroidery over and over again was really a cruel test for martial artists who brandish spears and staffs. With hard work comes a harvest. Xiaohua stretched lazily and raised his eyes to look at the altar that stretched all the way to the sky. He himself couldn't believe that he had actually walked through it from top to bottom. Sometimes, a person's greed is also the driving force behind their progress. Other people's business is done. Now, it's time to look at this Zhao's own fortune. Xiaohua's heart couldn't help but burn. He raised his eyes to look at the tall altar and walked up step by step. The top of the altar was somewhat similar to the peak of an ordinary mountain, but it was quite big. Xiaohua looked at it with his naked eyes and saw that it was at least several hundred li in size. Xiaohua stood on the white bone altar and saw the 10,000 Fei diagram gushing out from the center of the altar at a glance. At this time, it was still full of demonic qi, and totems of great demons were flying all over the sky. However, these totems couldn't cover the stars in the sky. Under the starlight, the images of the great demons were even more distinct, revealing their all-powerful spirit. White jade capital in the sky, 12 buildings and 5 cities. Immortals touch my head, and I'll be immortal. Xiaohua looked at such a clear starry sky and saw such a heroic great demon totem. He couldn't help but recite. Although this Xiao doesn't know where the immortals are, with the path to heaven, not to mention immortals, this Xiao can even see gods and Buddhas. This Xiao doesn't need other people to touch my head and be immortal. This Xiao wants to touch other people's heads and teach them immortality. Chapter 3785. Thinking of this, a kind of indescribable pride was born in his heart. The engraved totems under his feet surged with the power of the stars and moon as well as demonic energy. Amidst the rising demonic energy, the light beam of the stars and moon fell with a loud bang. Amidst this brilliance, Xiaohua's body suddenly trembled. Following the pride in Xiaohua's heart, the 13,200 small dots in his body couldn't help but jump in joy. Roar! Xiaohua looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. A soaring aura rushed out from his head. Ga! The sound of a phoenix's cry resounded in his body. It seemed to be coming from the 13,200 small dots. Moreover, along with this phoenix cry, a kind of thin vortex appeared in the center of each small dot. These vortexes were like small mouths that crazily swallowed the power of the stars and moon that fell on Xiaohua's body. Rumble, rumble, rumble! The stars in the entire legacy world suddenly shook. Every star emitted a brilliant brilliance. Hundreds of millions of rays of brilliance rushed into the vast sky and into the 132 whirlpools. Xiaohua's several hundred zhang tall transcendence golden body emitted brilliant starlight, and it was precisely competing with the stars in the sky. At this moment, it seemed that only Xiaohua's transcendence golden body was the only one in the entire legacy world. Another earth-shattering sound came from this star. Xiaohua's transcendence golden body began to slowly transform. The 13,200 vortexes seemed to have broken free from their shackles and shook cheerfully. A phoenix that was thousands of feet in size flapped its wings and transformed into a phoenix. Moreover, along with the input of the power of the stars and moon, this phoenix's transcendence golden body grew bigger and bigger. It was no less than 10,000 feet. Haha, refreshing. Refreshing! Xiaohua's unusually arrogant voice came from the phoenix. A phoenix rises with the wind in a day, soaring 90,000 miles in the sky. When the wind stops, it can still sweep away the water of Tsangming. When people see me, they laugh coldly when they see me. Father Xian is afraid of the younger generation. Husband Xian is not young. This Xiao is so unhindered. This is why I'm a hero of this generation. This Xiao has such a magical ability that I can turn the clouds and rain with a flip of my hand. Fast, fast. Soon after, the phoenix Xiaohua flapped its wings and flew to the center of the altar. The phoenix Xiaohua was already able to see clearly from the high ground. The altar was covered with totem demon characters. Those totem demon characters were like great demons. They surrounded the center of the altar and worshipped. At a glance, it was impossible to tell how many totem demon characters there were. In the center of these totem demon runes, there was a crystal object that was flowing with colorful lights. Strange demonic clouds and light flashed, and the array diagram of 10,000 demons came out from this light screen. Is this the bloodline of the absolute saint? Phoenix Xiaohua couldn't help but be shocked. The 1,000 Fei diagram that could break the heaven's punishment prison crystal was nothing more than the flickering light screen of the absolute saint bloodline. Then this absolute saint bloodline, how powerful was it? There was no need to think too much. As long as Phoenix Xiaohua moved his phoenix claws, he would know. Unfortunately, there was no time for Xiaohua to hesitate at this moment. The phoenix's body was now burning hot, and it pounced toward the crystal-like object. Phoenix Xiaohua originally thought that it would encounter some kind of obstruction, or even some kind of restriction, But who knew that when the phoenix's body flew close enough, that crystal-like object didn't move at all? No, it's a little strange. Xiaohua secretly pondered. Such a absolute saint bloodline is an object of heaven and earth. How could it not be guarded? Moreover, I'm not the first one to come here. Could it be that there are no other demons approaching? How come there isn't even a bone here? Just as Xiaohua was hesitating, the phoenix's body moved again. Those 130-200 little dots emitted strange vibrations, and the fluctuations immediately condensed into a beam that rushed toward the crystal-like object that was close at hand. Amidst the 130-200 different vibrations, that crystal-like object instantly melted, and it was precisely the shape of a drop of blood. Roar, roar! Once the drop of blood formed, countless strange roars resounded. Countless powerful auras were born from the drop of blood, and the stars that filled the sky were instantly extinguished under the vibration. It was as if they were extremely afraid of this absolute saint aura. What was even crazier was that a monstrous storm was set off in the entire legacy world. Countless airflows and countless remnant wills flew out from various places and pounced toward this drop of blood, as if they wanted to get a share of this drop of blood. Ka the Phoenix Xiaohua once again let out a clear cry. One after another, extremely unruly and ferocious auras actually rushed out from the 130-200 small dots, forming a huge vortex. Not only did it crush the incoming remnant thoughts, it even gave birth to a huge phantom of a phoenix, firmly protecting the entire altar. Boom! At the same time the phoenix phantom covered the altar, a deafening sound suppressed all movements. All the airwaves, all the remnant wills, all the wills, and even everything in the legacy world disappeared. Only the altar was left between heaven and earth. Outside the altar was the phoenix phantom, and outside the phantom was an incomparably huge copper cauldron. Ha! Heavenly Phoenix, why are you here? Suddenly, an extremely grand aura was born in Phoenix Xiaohua's mind. This voice's intonation and pronunciation were extremely strange. Phoenix Xiaohua had never heard it before, but he was able to understand the meaning of these words. I didn't expect you to actually come. Since that's the case, it seems like you've also thought it through. You have decided to do this? Phoenix Xiaohua opened his mouth, but inside the copper cauldron he couldn't move at all. Even his thoughts came to a standstill. He was simply unable to think about the meaning contained in this voice. At this moment, that huge body violently shook. It seemed like it was very dissatisfied with this kind of confinement. However, Xiaohua didn't know whether this kind of vibration was a kind of hint or words, because after the huge phoenix phantom shook, that kind of confinement suddenly weakened, and that strange voice was born again. Before you, many of my demon race's brave warriors had already tried to come here, but none of them succeeded. Since you're willing to take on this mission, then, come. Along with the disappearance of the voice, the confinement also disappeared. However, the nearby space immediately became blazing hot. An indescribable madness was born from the blood droplet in front of him. Even more so, countless tyrannical consciousnesses rushed out from within, instantly drowning Xiaohua's consciousness. Damn it! Suddenly, Xiaohua finally understood. The so-called Supreme Saint bloodline was probably the inheritance left behind by countless great demons in ancient times. These great demons' consciousnesses and inheritances fought on this altar, and finally fused together to form the so-called Supreme Saint bloodline, right? And he had racked his brains to collect all the true bloodlines on the altar, but in fact, it wasn't even comparable to a tenth of this Supreme Saint bloodline. Xiaohua felt that something was wrong. All the consciousnesses here were many times stronger than him. His mind saw that the situation was not good, and immediately escaped into the space. Boom! The entire space was shaking, violently swaying without end. Good boy green-robed Xiaohua moved in front of Jade Archive Xiaohua, and asked mysteriously, "Fellow Taoist, this body of ours really has a history." "Damn it, don't ask me." Jade Archive Xiaohua waved his hand and said with a bitter smile, "I also don't know what's going on. I already can't remember everything clearly. Who knows what the origin is?" "Oh, wait a moment." Just when green-robed Xiaohua was about to speak again, Jade Archive Xiaohua's expression suddenly changed. He only spoke half a sentence, and immediately sat cross-legged in the space, facing the sky. Strands of fine lines came from outside the space, and howls like the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves came from those fine lines. Even fragments of the Desolate Era's catalog were faintly born from these fine lines. Good boy green-robed Xiaohua's face showed understanding, and he cried out, "I knew it, how could this phoenix's body be so daring?" So, this was his plan. Green-robed Xiaohua knew that in this space, there was nothing that Jade Archive Xiaohua couldn't do. If this kind of consciousness fusion was outside the space, Xiaohua would definitely not be able to complete it. But in Jade Archive Xiaohua, it was not a particularly dangerous thing, so he looked for a moment, hummed a song and walked away. If Jade Archive Xiaohua had the time now, he would definitely hear the song that green-robed Xiaohua was humming. Little sister, you sit at the bow however. How could Jade Archive Xiaohua have the time to be distracted at this time? Every fine line that came from outside the space was a Desolate Era's catalog that contained countless information. Each Desolate Era's catalog was the growth history of an Desolate Era's great demon. And each Desolate Era's catalog was the inheritance of an Desolate Era's demon clan. What Xiaohua saw in the myriad demon diagram was only the prelude of these catalogs, and it couldn't be less. Such a huge amount of information rushed into Jade Archive Xiaohua's head at a terrifying speed. If this was not inside the space, how could Xiaohua bear it? Inside Phoenix Xiaohua's body, there were exactly 132 small dots that produced the same amount of suction force. Each of the suction force also frantically pounced on each of the inherited bloodlines. At that mysterious moment, all of the bloodlines came into contact with all of the small dots. A kind of indescribable brilliance abruptly emerged from Phoenix Xiaohua's body. It was even more dazzling than the previous stars, even more resplendent than the previous starry sky. Phoenix Xiaohua shrunk to the size of a speck of dust, and the legacy realm also became insignificant. Phoenix Xiaohua was so huge that one couldn't look up at it, and the legacy realm was also incomparably huge. All kinds of strange, all kinds of mysteries, one after another, appeared on Phoenix Xiaohua's body. It was unknown how many years had passed in this world. Chapter 3786. Inside the space, Jade Archive Xiaohua's figure also changed from time to time, and also emitted strange fluctuations. These fluctuations spread throughout the space, not only falling on the starry sky, but also on many resting demonic beasts. But suddenly, Jade Archive Xiaohua's figure suddenly stopped, and the fine lines that swept through the space suddenly disappeared. Xiaohua opened his eyes, and starlight flashed in his eyes. He looked at the sky and said in surprise, "How in the end it actually concluded into a totem? This is the task that the voice mentioned?" In that instant, Jade Archive Xiaohua felt as if he had been tricked. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't depict the totem, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't write it down. However, the appearance of the totem was in his mind. In the mind of Jade Archive Xiaohua, who could control the entire space, this was absolutely unimaginable. If there was nothing strange about it, then it would be the real strangeness. Phoenix Xiaohua, you really got I into trouble. Jade Archive Xiaohua was extremely helpless. At this time, how could he not know the strangeness of his phoenix body? Also the origin of the 132 million small dots in his body? His primordial spirit had already controlled the body, but the body was really strong, and it inevitably affected his primordial spirit. Forget it, Jade Archive Xiaohua helplessly shook his head. I have encountered many strange things, haven't I? When the Jade Archive Xiaohua exited the space, the entire altar appeared high up in the sky again. His 10,000 feet tall body had returned to its original state. Inside his body, the Phoenix Xiaohua was extremely weak, as if a person had been trampled on by thousands of horses. Looking at his body again, it was no different from before, but Xiaohua was very clear that he was no longer the same as before. Just with this body alone, not to mention the hidden immortal continent, even in the 1,000 demonic sacred realm, no demonic beast would dare to compare with him. Of course, as Ao Zhan said, obtaining the bloodline only allowed him to step on the road to becoming a saint, but to really become a saint, he still needed to cultivate in the future. A true dragon bloodline could make a demonic beast a saint. Then what about the 132 million bloodlines condensed into a saint bloodline? What would it make Xiaohua become? This seemed to be the goal of Xiaohua's body in the future. This may be explained in the chaos scroll outside the soul cultivation hall. Xiaohua glanced at his body, then looked at the phoenix Xiaohua who was in a weak slumber. Xiaohua then raised his head to look at the starry sky. All kinds of starlight were strangely dim, as if they had been ravaged. Looking further into the distance, although Xiaohua couldn't see much clearly, he could clearly sense that all living things in the legacy world were still full of vitality. They had their own lives. Everything that happened at the altar didn't particularly affect them. Sometimes, the ignorant are fearless. Ignorance is also a blessing. Xiaohua sighed lightly and raised his hand. His large hand transformed into several hundred and grabbed towards the several hundred white bones on the altar. The white bones that were trying their best to resist were now very obedient. Even the altar didn't have any reaction. All the white bones were taken into Xiaohua's space. Xiaohua didn't look at them carefully. He raised his hand again and grabbed the nine-tailed fox totem with his 5 fingers. Gigi. On the totem, a blood-colored little fox cried out a few times in fear, then obediently turned into a small ball of blood and fell into Xiaohua's hand. Xiaohua also took it into the space. When Xiaohua finished doing all this and wanted to think again, boom, the same huge light pillar fell from the sky and covered Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua's heart moved, and he hurriedly took out the token. Buzz buzz, the token flashed in the light pillar, and the light pillar also moved in the sky. In a moment, a huge force lifted Xiaohua up. Obviously, it wanted to send Xiaohua back to the altar in Songlongzi's cave mansion. But at this moment, a huge dragon roar came from below Xiaohua. A huge dragon suddenly appeared not far from the altar, and rushed into the light pillar. Damn it. So it's this guy. Why isn't he dead yet? Xiaohua was slightly surprised. When he saw the dragon rushing to his feet, he suddenly realized. Isn't this the dragon that attacked Ao Qian before? Xiaohua thought that it had already escaped far away. Even if it was hiding in the surroundings, the change in the altar should have already crushed it to death. Who knew that it was still safe and sound? Xiaohua was surprised, but he didn't feel nervous. He reached out and grabbed at the huge force. However, before he could grab the dragon's body, the dragon's aura blocked his hand, and a numb feeling came from his hand. This Xiao's body has just merged with the holy bloodline, so it's very weak. Xiaohua understood and secretly cursed it. I'm afraid I can't subdue this dragon here. While speaking, Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand, and took out the Kunlun mirror. As he urged his magic power, a light pillar shot towards the huge dragon's head. The huge dragon saw that the light pillar was like a horse, and a flickering halo appeared at the dragon's horn. It actually condensed into a several zhang large shield that blocked the light pillar. Clang, the light pillar was blocked by the shield, and it was reflected back and hit the light pillar in the sky. Boom, the light pillar suddenly widened, and the strength suddenly increased. Xiaohua and the huge dragon were immediately sucked in, and the light pillar instantly turned into a star-shaped whirlpool and disappeared. Only at this time did the heaven-reaching altar let out a huge roar and gradually sank into the ground, waiting for another descendant of the demon race to come with the token. Where is this? Xiaohua was sucked in by the light pillar, and his eyes slightly shook. He was actually in the void. Xiaohua scanned with his divine sense, but he couldn't see the boundary of the space. And the huge dragon that was fighting with him also disappeared. After waiting for a while with his divine sense and soul awareness, Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Damn it, this evil dragon. Why are you causing trouble? If you want to come out, just tell me. There's no need to sneak attack. You have enmity with the East Sea Dragon Palace, not with me. I'm too lazy to care about your business. Now this Xiao doesn't even know where I am. What about you? I'm afraid you're not having a good time, right? However, Xiaohua was never afraid of the void. He almost didn't hesitate to fly towards a place. But after flying for a while, he smiled again. With a wave of his hand, the turtle shell that he got from Songlangzi's cave flew out. The turtle shell flew into the void, and immediately emitted a light ochre brilliance, transforming into a scroll, and a heart shape quickly flew out from the scroll. Good Xiaohua smiled and patted his head again. Pu Huang Hongqing's 3 heavens hearts of different colors flew out. The light ochre heaven's heart immediately flew over cheerfully and formed a circle with the 3 heavens' hearts, forming a 4-colored circle. The 4-colored heavens' hearts flickered and rotated in the void, causing the heavenly book to slowly flip. Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand, and the heavenly book fell into his hand. He looked at it with the clear eyes technique and found that it recorded the cultivation method of wood essence unification. Woo-woo. Just as Xiaohua was looking at it with rapt attention, the 4-colored heavens' hearts suddenly became strange again and slightly rotated, wanting to rush down. It seemed that there was something there that was attracting them. I'm afraid that Senior Tsang Langzi's cave below. Xiaohua understood. He opened his mouth, and the 4-colored heavens' hearts fell into his chest. Then he sent the heavenly book into his middle dantian and urged his body to fly down. Fellow Taoist, after flying for half an hour, he still didn't see anything. Suddenly, Dragon Vein, Xiaohua said, I suddenly have a very familiar feeling. Oh, what's wrong? Xiaohua asked curiously. Why do you have such a strange feeling? I think I'm home. Dragon Vein Xiaohua's indifferent words almost made Xiaohua jump up in fright. Your home is here? Then isn't I's home also here? Xiaohua hurriedly asked. Dragon Vein Xiaohua said with a smile. I only said I think I'm home. Oh, Xiaohua blinked his eyes, as if he didn't understand. I'll quickly go down and take a look. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua seemed to be very happy, and also said, I also have a familiar feeling. It can't be. Xiaohua was really dumbfounded. Could it be that below is not Song Langzi's cave? Roar faintly, a familiar dragon's roar actually came from the void. Enemies are bound to meet. So that evil dragon is here. Xiaohua pinched his nose and laughed loudly, and hurriedly increased his flying speed. After waiting for half a meal's time, when Xiaohua flew closer and saw clearly, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He saw that at the bottom of the void, there was a huge dragon shape, and this dragon shape stretched for thousands of miles. The dragon-shaped figure was carrying a mountain-like object on its back. The tail of the dragon-shaped figure was currently hanging on a strange cauldron-shaped object. The cauldron-shaped object was like a huge nail that was firmly nailed into the ground. In the dragon-shaped figure's mouth, there was a small dragon that was struggling at death's door. This dragon was the giant dragon that had fought with Xiaohua to fly out of the light pillar. Now, in the dragon-shaped figure's mouth, it was pitifully transformed into a small dragon. Roar! Just when Xiaohua was stunned, Dragon Vein Xiaohua roared loudly, rushed out of Xiaohua's body, and rapidly expanded. In just a moment, it actually became a dragon shape that was very similar to the dragon shape, but thousands of miles long. Dragon Vein. How could Xiaohua not understand when he saw this? His gaze looked at the mountain above the dragon vein, and he couldn't help but smile bitterly in admiration. Damn, this mountain! I'm afraid it's Song Langzi's cave. Song Langzi actually built his cave on top of the dragon vein. And this dragon vein is a moving dragon vein. No wonder this cave can move. As for why it stopped in Jingzhou, I'm afraid it's because when the dragon vein brought the cave here, it was hung here by this cauldron-shaped thing. But what is this cauldron? It can actually nail the dragon chi? Chapter 3787. Fellow Immortal, save me. Just as Xiaohua is stunned, the little dragon in the mouth of the dragon vein actually speaks. Xiaohua retracts his gaze from the cauldron, looks at the little dragon up and down and says with a smile, Why should I save you? Give me a reason first. The little dragon hesitates a bit and says, I can tell fellow immortal what is this thing that is nailing the dragon vein. And I can also tell fellow immortal how to collect this thing. It's not important what this thing is. It's also not important whether to collect this thing or not. Xiaohua slightly shakes his head. The question is, why should I collect this thing? You sneak attacked I. Why should I save you? Fellow immortal, you wronged me. I actually didn't plan to sneak attack you. The little dragon bitterly smiles. You and I have no enmity. I just wanted to follow you out of the Cold Spirit Valley. But I was afraid that you would misunderstand, so I didn't dare to greet you. Cold Spirit Valley? Xiaohua's eyes turn, looks at the little dragon and says, I know that you have enmity with the East Sea Dragon Palace. Although I am not familiar with the East Sea Dragon Palace now, I still need their help in the future, so I don't plan to get involved in the enmity between you two, let alone save you. Fellow immortal, why are you looking for the East Sea Dragon Palace? I am also from the dragon race, maybe I can help you. The little dragon hastily asks. I want to go to the dragon island, Xiao Hua says with a smile. Can you help This the little dragon hesitates for a moment. If it was before, I can certainly guarantee it, but now, I don't have 60% certainty. Oh. Seeing that the little dragon actually admits that he can't and didn't lie to him, Xiao Hua is a bit surprised. He looks at the cauldron under his feet and says, then tell me what this thing is first. This is the Jing province cauldron, one of the 9 cauldrons of the hidden immortal continent. The little dragon says without hesitation. Cauldron? Xiao Hua suddenly quivers, as if he thought of another inconceivable thing. Could this be the 9 province cauldron that the Confucian cultivator spoke of? The 9 province cauldron that can suppress fate and nail the mountains? This legendary 9 province cauldron actually really exists? Of course it exists, Xiaolong replied. Although the 9 cauldrons suppress the 9 prefectures, no one can see it. If it wasn't for the dragon chi surrounding the Jingzhou cauldron, we wouldn't be able to see it either. Since you know that the 9 continents' cauldrons cannot be seen, how do you know how to obtain them? Xiao Hua asked again. This is the inheritance of my dragon bloodline. There's no reason for it. The little dragon replied proudly. All right. Hearing that it was another inheritance, Xiao Hua understood and could only helplessly say, do you think I can accept this Jing province cauldron? Of course not. However, your excellency has the dragon vein fate. You are a person with great fortune in the human race. If you have the heavenly book Heart of Heaven, you will definitely be able to obtain it. The little dragon replied. Xiao Hua smiled. If I didn't have the heavenly book's heavenly heart, wouldn't I be unable to collect it? Of course. But what if I search his soul? Wouldn't you also be able to obtain the method to collect it? Xiao Hua threatened. Hee, fellow immortal, you can give it a try. The little dragon laughed. My cave at this point, Xiaolong suddenly stopped talking. He looked a bit embarrassed and said, if fellow immortal doesn't want to make a deal with me, then that's fine. Actually, Upper Dragon Island. You're a dragon from the heavenly abode river. Xiao Hua suddenly said with a smile. En Xiaolong was not very familiar with the human language of the hidden immortal continent. Just now he accidentally let the cat out of the bag, and was thinking about how to remedy it. Xiao Hua suddenly attacked him, and he casually responded. If it was an ordinary dragon language, Xiaolong would definitely not have made such a mistake. However, since he had already spoken, Xiaolong's expression immediately changed. He knew that he would make a mistake if he spoke too much, so he ignored Xiao Hua. Thinking of the heavenly abode river dragon tribe, Xiao Hua first thought of Xiao Yun, and that incomparably strong dwarf in the longevity town. Then he thought of the water escape technique he obtained the earliest. Looking at the somewhat depressed Xiaolong with a smile, Xiao Hua knew that there was definitely a problem with the dragon pendant fragment that Ao Zhan obtained. However, he did not point it out. He only asked, I don't care who you are, nor do I care about the grudges between you and the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. I only want to ask you one thing. You have to answer honestly. If I'm satisfied, I can save you. Xiaolong looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief. He did not dare to say more and only nodded. A few years ago, was it your heavenly abode river water tribe that flooded the longevity town? Hearing Xiao Hua ask about the longevity town, Xiaolong's expression clearly relaxed. He nodded without hesitation. Why did the water tribe of the heavenly abode river flood the longevity town? Immortal friend, didn't you only ask one question? This seems like it's already 2 questions. Xiaolong stuttered. Yes, I haven't asked that question yet. Xiao Hua's eyes lit up as he replied. Xiaolong thought for a moment and said, then you can ask now. All right. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Tell me the ins and outs of how the heavenly abode river flooded the longevity town. Ah. Xiaolong did not know whether to laugh or cry. This sentence is a bit too long. However, the matter of the water tribe of the heavenly abode river flooding the longevity town did not seem to be a big deal in Xiaolong's eyes. He thought for a moment, and then told Xiao Hua. The matter could not be considered simple or troublesome. Due to a certain reason that Xiaolong was unwilling to say, the Heavenly Abode River's dragon girl, Jiang Hong, was lost in the Yu province area. The water tribe of the Heavenly Abode River searched for her for several years without any news. Later on, a water demon found traces of the dragon girl in the Longevity Town. Therefore, the water tribe of the Heavenly Abode River sent Dragon General Jiang Sheng and a group of water tribe to investigate. Who knew that the news was true, and the dragon general brought the dragon girl back. How is Jiang Hong now? Xiaohua thought for a moment and asked for Lu Yi in the end. My family's princess is very good. Xiaolong replied in astonishment. Immortal friend, why do you ask this? It's nothing. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, when you go back, tell Jiang Hong that my disciple Lu Yi misses her very much. Okay, Xiaolong casually said. Then, he realized the meaning of the human language of the hidden immortal continent and said in surprise, You can save me? Quickly tell I the secret of how to collect the 9-province cauldron. I can't wait, Xiaohua said with a smile. But if I tell you, what if a mortal friend doesn't save me? This Xiaolong was definitely not a fool. I am Lu Yi's master. How can I deceive the water tribe of the Heavenly Abode River? Who is Lu Yi? Forget it, Xiaohua opened his mouth and said, Taoist dragon vein, you can devour this dragon vein. Roar dragon vein, Xiaohua roared, and opened his mouth to charge at the dragon vein. The dragon vein seemed to have intelligence and hurriedly struggled. However, its tail was completely suppressed by the Jing province cauldron. How could it escape? In just half an hour, dragon vein Xiaohua had already devoured most of the dragon vein. Seeing dragon vein Xiaohua being so fierce, Xiaolong was really scared. He might not be afraid of Xiaohua, but the dragon vein could devour him at this moment. Immortal friend, listen carefully. Xiaolong did not wait for Xiaohua to urge him, and hurriedly transmitted his voice. Xiaohua lazily picked his ear and said, I told you to say it earlier. In the future we might be a family. Yes. Xiaolong was very helpless and hurriedly smiled. Oh, by the way, how did you avoid Ao Zhan's detection? Why don't you tell I? Xiaohua suddenly thought of something and asked again. Xiaolong, who boasted of his wisdom, looked at the greedy Xiaohua and then looked at the dragon vein Xiaohua behind him. After weighing the pros and cons in his heart for a long time, he softly transmitted his voice and told him everything. Good. Hearing this, Xiaohua beamed with joy. This kind of concealment method was the best way to sneak attack. He liked it the most. After Xiaohua finished listening, Xiaohua waved his hand. Xiaohua swallowed the remaining portion of the dragon vein and released the little dragon. Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands. Fellow immortal, please leave. This poor Taoist will not send you off. AI no matter what. Thank you, immortal friend. Xiaolong sighed and said, I hope immortal friend will not reveal my actions to the East Sea Dragon Palace. You think Ao Zhan is a fool? Xiaohua said with a smile. Even I think that your dragon pendant is fake. How can he not see it? Immortal friend is wrong. Sometimes, everyone is very smart, but they are willing to be fools. The authenticity of the dragon pendant doesn't matter, as long as you have the dragon pendant. Oh, I understand. Xiaohua nodded thoughtfully. This is my dragon pendant. Xiaolong stretched out his hand and took out a dragon pendant, handing it to Xiaohua. I am called Jiang Che. If you want to go to Dragon Island, I really don't dare to agree. If you really want to go, I will help you think of a way. Take it as a reward for not revealing my actions. Immortal friend Jiang has a good plan. I am Xiaohua. Xiaohua accepted it with a smile. He didn't even look at it and kept it in his space. We will talk about this later. As for your whereabouts, I think Ao Zhan and the East Sea Dragon Palace may not care. I hope so. Jiang Che cupped his hands. Taoist Xiao, we will meet again. Please. Xiaohua nodded and raised his hand. After Jiang Che flew away, Xiaohua hurriedly called Dragon Vein Xiaohua. Taoist Dragon Vein, you should leave some of the dragon vein. Otherwise, who will carry Senior Songlongzi's cave? I understand. Isn't there a tail here? Dragon Vein Xiaohua smiled and pointed at the Jingzhou cauldron. When you keep this cauldron, I will release the rest of the dragon vein. Good. Xiaohua nodded. He released the four-colored heaven's core and surrounded the Jingzhou cauldron. Then he had Confucian cultivator Xiaohua use the 9 flying swords to pin the Jingzhou cauldron. Finally, according to the secret technique Jiang Che taught him, he used the dragon vein to pull the Jingzhou cauldron out of the ground. Rumble, the earth seemed to be shaking. Xiaohua pulled the Jingzhou cauldron out of the ground. Once the seemingly huge Jingzhou cauldron was pulled out, it immediately shrunk and turned into a strange object the size of a palm. Seeing the strange object in his hand, Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air and said in shock, Isn't this one of the 5 strange objects in Kong Hongwu's Qingquan pouch? Chapter 3788. Of course, if one looked closely, this thing looked similar to a small hedgehog. Wasn't it similar to those weird things that Xiaohua got from Kong Hongwu? Thinking of this, Xiaohua hurriedly took out the other 5 things. When the 6 of them were put together, a layer of dark luster appeared. It looked very thick and mysterious. Needless to say, these 6 things must be the 6 cauldrons of the 9 province cauldrons. Looking at the 6 cauldrons, Xiaohua's hands slightly trembled, and he almost threw them out of his hand. This was the fate of the 6 provinces of the hidden immortal continent, and it was actually in his hands. No one, not to mention anyone, even the immortal emperor probably wouldn't have thought of this. Almost instantly, Xiaohua immediately sent the 6 cauldrons into the space. He had already decided that he wouldn't take them out unless it was a critical moment. And he wouldn't let anyone know. Damn it, if the Confucian cultivators knew about this, they would probably go crazy and pull out my tendons and skin me alive. That's not right. They should be looking for Kong Hongwu. This was all done by that guy. That's not right either. Kong Hongwu was the Hall Master of Star Lord Hall, a righteous Confucian cultivator. Why did he collect the cauldrons of the 9 province cauldrons in the hidden immortal continent? Isn't this destroying the fate of the Confucian cultivators for no reason? Xiaohua was really baffled. Many distracting thoughts flashed through his mind. Could it be that I killed him by mistake? Is he a Taoist cultivator? While Xiaohua was thinking, Dragon Vein Xiaohua flew back. Xiaohua looked up and saw that the remaining 10% of the Dragon Vein was abnormally weak. At this moment, the Dragon Vein Songlongzi's cave was still able to move, but it was moving very slowly. Fellow Taoist, you have a good appetite. Xiaohua gave Dragon Vein Xiaohua a thumbs up and praised. Dragon Vein Xiaohua smacked his lips and said with a smile, Thank you, fellow Taoist. If you have this opportunity in the future, you might as well call I out more often. Xiaohua thought for a moment and asked again. Jiang Che just said that the cauldrons of the 9 province cauldrons are invisible underground. Not to mention ordinary cultivators, even immortals and Buddhas can't detect them. Can fellow Taoists see them? Of course I can't see them. Dragon Vein Xiaohua shook his head without hesitation. It can't be. Even fellow Taoists can't see it? Xiaohua was a bit dumbfounded. I can't see, but I can sense it within 100 miles. Dragon Vein Xiaohua replied with a smile. Bailey, it's a bit far. Xiaohua sighed. The other 3 cauldrons must be in the other 3 prefectures. Each prefecture is more than 1,000,000 miles in size. 100 miles away is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Dragon Vein Xiaohua shrugged his shoulders. Fellow Taoist is too impatient. Being able to sense it within 100 li is already very good. Oh, that's right. Xiaohua was slightly taken aback. He cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoist is right. I was a bit too eager for quick success. Fellow Taoist, please go back and rest. We'll talk about this later. After sending Dragon Vein Xiaohua back, Xiaohua looked around again. Seeing that there were no other abnormalities, he prepared to return to Songlongzi's cave. However, looking at the cave that was like a mountain, Xiaohua really scratched his ears and cheeks. He didn't want to walk through the maze again. After thinking for a while, he took out the token from the legacy world. Unfortunately, the Seeing Cauldron didn't have any spiritual light now. It was no different from an ordinary small cauldron. Presumably, it couldn't be used again, let alone send Xiaohua back to the altar in Songlongzi's cave. Forget it. Xiaohua thought for a while and sighed. Senior Songlongzi must have entered the legacy world by chance and even comprehended Dao from the flying ants. As for whether he obtained the true blood of the demon clan, this is unknown, since he left the altar undestroyed and even left a passage under the cloud bed. Why should this Xiao go and destroy these things? Now that I have obtained the bloodline of the absolute saint, no matter how you look at it, I still received the favor of the demon clan. I can't repay kindness with enmity. After thinking, Xiaohua escaped from the ground and arrived above the Jade Mountains maze. Xiaohua had left the legacy realm, so he naturally wouldn't know that at a location at the extreme edge of the legacy realm, an enormous pillar of starlight seemed to penetrate the entire legacy realm as it fell straight down. A triangular hole was emitting a dense demonic aura. Rumble amidst the enormous rumbling, an object the size of a foot flew out from the demonic aura. That object was 9-colored, and the demonic aura lingered around it. It was precisely the appearance of a fox. At the same time, a roar resounded through the sky from the cave entrance. A great demon that was several hundred feet tall flew out from the cave entrance. As soon as that great demon fell into the legacy world, it raised its claws and grabbed the fox-like object. After being stunned for a moment, it looked up to the sky and laughed. A series of strange words came out from the great demon's mouth. This is indeed the legacy world. Ha ha ha. This old man racked his brains and killed who knows how many demon clans. Finally, I found the entrance to the legacy world in the abandoned land of the 10,000 demon realm. Wait until this old man obtains the ancient bloodline. This old man will certainly become the sage emperor of this generation. After saying that, that great demon put away the token and flew up. A huge shadow came out from its body. It was a fox with 9 tails behind it. Xiaohua flew to the Cloudy Mountain Maze. At this time, the Cloudy Mountain Maze was a little different from when Xiaohua entered it a few years ago. The broken ruins were gradually recovering under the power of the formation. Even the water of the Yellow Springs formation was flowing out from the Immortal's Cave. The entire formation was still in operation. Of course, without the several hundred evil spirits inside the profound purity forbidden spirit formation, this formation had lost a lot of its power. However, how many cultivators like Xiaohua in the hidden immortal continent could cultivate Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and Devil Dao? In the future, even if other cultivators came to break the formation, it wouldn't be easy. Especially, after the dragon vein came out from the Jing province cauldron. This cloudy mountain maze began to move again. Although it was moving very slowly now, who knew where it would move to in the future? At that time, the number of cultivators who could find it would be even fewer, right? Xiaohua stood in the air and looked at this formation. All kinds of feelings welled up in his heart. This kind of mood and all kinds of harvest was something he didn't expect when he entered the formation that year. No wonder all the cultivators want to explore the ancient forbidden formation. Now this Xiaohua finally understands. The things inside are really too precious. Xiaohua thought to himself. Thinking about what this Xiaohua obtained inside, I really didn't expect it even in my dreams. All of this is enough for this Xiaohua to cultivate for several thousand years. Several thousand years sounded very shocking, but Xiaohua still underestimated the bloodline of the sage emperor. How could 10,000 years of cultivation be enough to completely integrate with the bloodline of the sage emperor? As for the specific amount of time, perhaps only Xiaohua who had reached that level could truly understand it. After sighing for a moment, Xiaohua released his divine sense. He found that there were no cultivators around this cloudy mountain maze. He knew that Zhang Daoran, Sun Kong, Zhai Xingzi, and the others didn't come out. He landed on the mountain peak of the maze. With a wave of his hand, he took out the Kunlun mirror. Under the urging of his magic power, Bayan flew out. Although there was a broken space inside the Kunlun mirror, under Xiaohua's deliberate arrangement, the people who were sucked into it didn't meet each other. Once Bayan flew out of the Kunlun mirror, her beautiful eyes immediately swept around. Seeing that Fujiwen wasn't beside her, she rolled her eyes and hurried forward to greet Xiaohua. This concubine greets spiritual master Xiao. Get up. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at Bayan. He flicked his sleeve and said, when you came out, this Xiaohua was in seclusion and didn't see you. However, this Xiaohua heard about you from Fujiwen and Gusiqiodi. Not only are you Gusuchioti's good friend, but you are also Fujiwen's wife. Therefore, this Xiaohua had no choice but to help you out. Although Xiaohua looked like he only had the strength of 4th stage essence power, and Baiyan was 5th stage essence power, Baiyan still respectfully listened to Xiaohua's words. After Xiaohua finished speaking, Baiyan immediately smiled and said, "Spiritual master is my husband's master. Naturally, you are this concubine's senior. Because my husband isn't here, this concubine doesn't dare to call him master. Spiritual master has taught my husband and helped this concubine escape. This concubine doesn't know how to properly thank you. Hee, the two of you haven't bowed to heaven and earth to get married. Isn't it too much to call him your husband?" Xiaohua said with a smile. Baiyan's face turned slightly red. She bit her lips and said resolutely, "This concubine knows how Fujiwen treats this concubine. In this lifetime, this concubine will only marry Fujiwen. Gusuchioti could betray the immortal palace for Luokong. Why can't this concubine do the same?" "There's no need for that," Xiaohua said with a smile. "You are different from Gusuchioti. You are Fujiwen's wife. How can this Xiaohua not care?" "Many thanks, Taoist." Baiyan hurriedly expressed her thanks. However, Xiaohua's expression turned serious. He said again, "You are a member of the immortal palace. This Xiaohua is a Taoist cultivator. Moreover, this Xiaohua and the immortal palace have some grudges. This Xiaohua has no choice but to ask about your and Gusuchioti's status in the immortal palace." This Baiyan was a bit hesitant. Soon after, she said with extreme sincerity, "Taoist Xiao, this concubine is a female official of the immortal palace. Naturally, this concubine is under the supervision of the immortal palace's laws. Moreover, this concubine is currently a criminal. This concubine doesn't dare to reveal the secrets of the immortal palace. I hope Taoist can understand." "And the Xiaohua can understand." Xiaohua saw that Bai and didn't want to say anything. Naturally, he didn't want to force her to say anything. Because during the time he spent with Gusuchioti and Jai Xingzi, he never heard Gusuchioti mention anything about the immortal palace. He knew that this matter was very important. Moreover, Taoist can't tell this concubine about the grudges between you and the immortal palace right now. Baiyan said hurriedly, "This concubine can't guarantee that my soul won't be searched when I return to the immortal palace." Si Xiaohua took a breath and said curiously, "Is it that serious?" "Yes." Baiyan nodded. "This concubine's punishment hasn't expired yet. The immortal palace naturally wants to find out the reason why the heaven's punishment prison crystal was broken. This concubine had Taoist hold on to the shards of the heaven's punishment prison crystal, because the immortal palace will use the information within the heaven's punishment prison crystal to determine whether this concubine's escape conforms to the immortal laws. If it was someone else, they would definitely be searched. But this concubine is the female official of the Emperor Star Palace. With that person's protection, my soul won't be searched. However, this is also uncertain. After all, there is still that person who has been following that person. Forget it, this concubine won't say anymore. It's fine as long as Taoist knows." Chapter 3789. Xiaohua originally wanted to ask who that person and that person were, but looking at the current situation, he shook his head slightly, knowing that it was better not to ask. Actually, I didn't call you out to ask you this." Xiaohua put aside his own matters and said to Wuqing, "I just wanted to ask you how you plan to deal with the matter with Fujiwen in the future. You only said that you will never leave him, but it's no different from not saying anything. And I also know that Fujiwen will definitely not let you betray the immortal palace like Gusuchioti. I won't hide it from you." Wuqing smiled and said, "When I first met Fujiwen, I also thought about this, but I felt that Fujiwen's lifespan would definitely not be longer than my sentence, so I thought that I would just muddle along with Fujiwen. When I saw you last time, I realized that I could possibly grow old with Fujiwen. As long as Fujiwen cultivates with you, even if he can't enter the immortal palace as an official with his Confucian cultivation, he can still enter the Penglai immortal realm with his Taoist cultivation. When that time comes, I will plead with that person to demote me to the Penglai immortal realm as punishment." "Penglai immortal realm?" Xiaohua was stunned and asked curiously, "What's that? Is it the same as the Star Lord Palace on Yaotai Mountain?" Sai Wuqing sighed and said, "Taoist, I can't say any more. Some things may not be considered secret to me, but to others they may not be secret. If that person knows, I will be in trouble again." "All right." Xiaohua smiled. "I won't make things difficult for you. Tell me, what level of Confucian cultivation has Fu Jiwen reached, and what level of Taoist cultivation has he reached, to meet your requirements?" "Confucian cultivation is more difficult. It has to be at least the Grandmaster level." Wuqing smiled and said, "Taoist cultivation is simple, as long as he has 5th grade essence power." "That's simple?" Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I am only at 5th grade essence power." "Hee, my husband has a Taoist as his master. Reaching 5th grade essence power is a piece of cake," Wuqing replied with a smile. "Ah, good. Since you said so, if this Xiao doesn't properly teach Fujiwen, I'm afraid I'll delay your good days." Xiaohua laughed. The Kunlun mirror shook and Fujiwen flew out from it. "Kunlun mirror?" Bai An's eyes lit up, and he almost blurted out. However, he immediately smiled bitterly. "Wife." Fujiwen landed on the ground with joy on his face. He stepped forward and held Momo's hand. "Are you free?" he asked anxiously. "It's up to you." Bai An allowed Fujiwen to hold her small hand. She chided him lovingly. "Master is right beside you. Why aren't you thanking him?" "It's okay. Master is one of us. He won't care about these things," Fujiwen said with a smile, but he still bowed and said, "Master, thank you very much." "No need to thank me, no need to thank me." Xiaohua flicked his sleeves and said, "You two can go and whisper to each other. Bai An probably can't stay here for long. 3 days later, when the two of you return, this Xiao will take out the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal fragment. I reckon that law enforcement envoy will appear again." Bai An and Fujiwen's faces were slightly red. However, the two of them bowed and said, "Thank you, Master." Looking at the two's departing figures, Xiaohua smiled slightly. The first thing he thought of was naturally Fairy Hongxia. An indescribable longing arose in his heart. He sighed and said, "Ai, it's good to be young. This Xiao is old now." Then Xiaohua sat cross-legged on the mountain peak and meditated. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Fujiwen and Bai An returned as promised. Their faces were filled with reluctance. Clearly, Bai An had already told Fujiwen his plans. Xiaohua didn't beat around the bush and asked, "Disciple, do you know everything?" "Yes, Master. This disciple will definitely concentrate on his cultivation and strive to see Bai An as soon as possible," Fujiwen hurriedly replied. "Good. Disciple, you wait here. Bai An, follow this Xiao." Xiaohua flicked his sleeves and turned around to fly into the sky. Bai An turned back to look at Fujiwen. Tears flowed from her eyes as she said reluctantly, "Husband, cultivate well. This concubine is leaving today for the sake of meeting you tomorrow. This concubine will definitely not let you down." "And go." Fujiwen forced a smile. "This husband will definitely do his best to cultivate so that I can bring my wife back as soon as possible." Bai An lowered her head and covered her face with her sleeves as she chased after Xiaohua. Xiaohua brought Bai An and flew thousands of li away in one breath. Then he asked Bai An, "Will the law enforcement envoy appear once the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal fragment is taken out?" "Yes." Bai An nodded. "And if you can't hide in time, that law enforcement envoy might take you away as well." "Hee, that depends on how strong he is." Xiaohua smiled and said, "Are you ready? This Xiao is going to take out the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal fragment." Bai An took a deep breath and said, "This concubine is ready. Take it out, adept." "Good." Xiaohua shook the Kunlun mirror, and the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal fragment immediately flew into the sky. Countless broken rune chains appeared on the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal. Within the rune chains, 9 different colored thunderbolts shot out in disarray. Soon after, 9 broken dragon-shaped phantoms appeared from the thunderbolts. Their hoarse roars resounded in the void. Just as the dragon form appeared, Xiaohua's figure that was standing in midair strangely disappeared. Bai An, who was originally worried, swept her beautiful eyes over Xiaohua several times, but she couldn't see any flaws. Only then did she feel relieved and admire Xiaohua in her heart. However, after a few breaths of time, a loud rumbling sound of thunder filled the air. In an instant, the area within 1,000 li was covered by red clouds. A kind of black clouds pressed down and suffocated. It was like an invisible wave that drowned everything in the world in an instant. A huge distorted light shadow that could split the heaven and earth appeared in front of the red clouds amidst the sound of thunder. Who broke the heaven's punishment prison crystal? An ethereal voice that was sometimes high and sometimes low, sometimes far and sometimes close, reverberated between heaven and earth. The guilty official of the school of the Emperor Star, Bayan greets the punishment envoy. Bayan didn't panic. He bowed and said, "The punishment envoy knows that it was the power of heaven and earth that triggered the immortal palace law of the heaven's punishment prison crystal. The guilty official has this opportunity to escape. The heaven's punishment prison crystal is here. The punishment envoy, please verify it." The guilty official of the school of the Emperor Star? I'm afraid I don't have the qualifications to verify it. Since it was the power of heaven and earth that broke the immortal palace law of the immortal palace, follow me back to the punishment hall of the 3 provinces of thunder to verify it. Yes, the guilty official knows. Bayan lowered his head. A thick light golden chain flew down from the red cloud. The inscriptions on the chain swam, and a restrictive aura that represented the power of heaven and earth filled the space within 1,000 miles. With a swish-swish sound, the chain fell on Bayan and tied him up. As the chain contracted, Bayan's figure disappeared into the red cloud. At the same time, a shadow of a giant hand that was thousands of feet long descended from the sky. It grabbed the heaven's punishment prison crystal fragment and disappeared. Another series of thunderbolts wreaked havoc within 1,000 miles. Immediately, the light shadow disappeared, the lightning disappeared, and even the red cloud dissipated. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Xiaohua's figure strangely appeared on the mountain peak. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the clear sky after the red cloud disappeared. He seemed to be thinking about something. Then he activated the Dragon Clan's invisibility technique and disappeared in the air. "Master," Bayan seeing Xiaohua suddenly appear beside him, Fujiwen didn't seem to be surprised. He hurriedly asked. He was still brought back to the Immortal Palace by the punishment envoy of the Immortal Palace. Xiaohua said with a smile, "I heard it was the punishment hall of the 3 provinces of thunder." "It's not a big deal. Don't worry." "Oh, that's good." Fujiwen breathed a sigh of relief. His heart wasn't completely at ease. He said in a low voice, "I hope Bayan can use this to get away with it." Xiaohua glanced at Fujiwen and said meaningfully, "Bayan is a female official of the Immortal Palace. Behind her is the school of the Emperor Star. Previously, even the punishment envoy was lenient. What is there to be afraid of in the punishment hall? Don't tell me Bayan didn't say anything to you." "Alas, master, Bayan really didn't dare to say anything to me." Fujiwen sighed. "It said that the various palaces and halls of the Immortal Palace are very complicated. The person Bayan mentioned in the school of the Emperor Star has some status, but forget it, let's not talk about this." Xiaohua waved his hand. "Bayan must have already planned for you. You should focus on cultivating. Whether it's Confucian cultivation or Taoist cultivation, I can teach you all. Moreover, you've gained a lot in Senior Songlongzi's cave. When you finish cultivating, I'm sure you won't be too far away from Bayan's plan." "That's right." Fujiwen looked down at the misty mountain maze and sighed. "Before I entered Senior Songlongzi's cave, I really didn't dare to have any extravagant hopes. However, in these past few years, what I've gained has greatly exceeded my expectations. In the future, as long as I'm under Master's guidance, I can really achieve what Bayan wants." "Good for your wife. You have to cultivate well." Xiaohua smiled. "However, you don't have to tell anyone about what you've gained in my cave. This disciple naturally knows." Fujiwen also gave a mysterious smile. "All right, we'll wait here. Who knows when they'll come out?" Xiaohua waved his hand and smiled. "Yes, master." Fujiwen looked around and flew to a nearby place to meditate. This wait lasted for more than half a year. During this time, the mountain peak where the cloudy mountain bewildering formation was located did not remain in its original place like before. Instead, it gradually moved eastward and underground. Although it did not move much each day, after a long time, not to mention Xiaohua, even Fu Jiwen noticed it. Fu Jiwen had doubts in his heart, but he didn't ask. Xiaohua closed his eyes and meditated every day. Just as the 4 entrances of the misty mountain maze were gradually sinking into the ground, a clear whistling sound could be heard from the east. Boom! A low rumbling sound could be heard from the entrance of the misty mountain maze, and a person rushed out from the hole. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.